this is Mickey Quinn, the official announcer of today's Two Mics podcast.
Good morning, I'm Mike Graham and he's Mike Parry and you're listening to Extra Time. We're keeping you entertained throughout the night. Just 1 day away from England taking on Honduras in the final warm-up game, of course, before they head off to Rio and take on Italy, Uruguay and Costa Rica in the World Cup proper. We'll be bringing you loads of news on that front throughout the course of the show. Also, of course, it is the 70th anniversary of the D-Day landings and we're going to be talking about that as well. We want to hear your stories and your remembrances from your parents or perhaps your grandparents. 08717 22 3344. You're listening to Extra Time with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry as well, right here on TalkSport.
D-Day has come. Early this morning, the Allies began the assault on the northwestern face of Hitler's European fortress. The first official news came just after 9:30, when Supreme Headquarters of the Allied Expeditionary Force issued Communiqué Number 1. This said, under the command of General Eisenhower, Allied naval forces, supported by strong air forces, began landing Allied armies this morning on the northern coast of France.
Since I spoke to you last, not only have the Hun invaders been driven from the lands they had ravaged, but the guts of the German army have been largely torn out by Russian valor and generalship. The hour of our greatest effort and action is approaching. And when the signal is given, the whole circle of avenging nations will hurl themselves upon the foe and batter out the life of the cruelest tyranny which has ever sought to bar the progress of mankind.
Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry. An unusual start to our show this morning because it is the anniversary very nearly of the D-Day landings in Normandy and an awful lot of coverage in the newspapers this morning that we'll talk about. But personally, a very important anniversary for you as well.
Well, very important, Mike. I mean, you know, we like to have a lively and bright show as we always do, and that's what we're going to have over the next 3 hours. And great to be back in the studio with you, and I'm really looking forward to addressing the listeners tonight. But it's such an historic moment, both for Britain, but particularly for myself, because at this exact time, 70 years ago, my father's ship, the Ascanius, left the Solent. They weighed anchor, literally, left the Solent. The captain of the ship played Land of Hope and Glory through the internal communication system, as it was in those days, on a Royal Navy warship. And they headed around the Isle of Wight and across the Channel to the Normandy beaches. And my father was 20 years of age at the time.
Amazing, isn't it?
21, I'm sorry, he was at the time. He was 17 when he joined the Royal Navy in 1940. This was 1944, so he'd been 21 the previous April. His birthday's April the 2nd. So at 21 years of age, there he was, steaming towards France. They had 1,200 Royal Marines on board, who they had to drop offshore, whilst trying to defend the shore. My father manned a gun on the ship, and his job was to try and bring down Messerschmitts that were coming, you know, from France. Germany had maybe 120 airfields in France full of planes designed to take out any flotilla that came, even though in the early hours the Germans were completely caught by surprise because they thought the attack was going to come over the narrowest point of the Channel. They thought it was going to come
and they also,
towards
Calais.
Calais.
Also not think that the weather was going to be too bad for it to happen as well?
Well, it was delayed a day anyway, as you know. It was delayed 24 hours because it should have been on June the 5th, but the weather was too bad. If they hadn't gone on June the 6th, it would have been a month's delay because of the low tides happening in the dark, i.e. before dawn came, which was, the darkness was essential. And one of the most important men in the whole of the operation was a Royal Naval Commander who was attached to the Met Office, who had to give General Eisenhower, the overall commander, the word whether to go or not. And if he'd got it wrong and the weather had been worse than it was, we'd lost a lot more men. A lot of the floating tanks, for instance, never made it to shore, and that was in a swell of a storm rated at about 3 to 4. If it had been 8 or 9, the boats wouldn't have got within a mile of the shore.
An awful lot of the men never made it to the shore either, did they?
Look, you and I were talking earlier, you know, we've seen lots of war films over the years, and a lot of them are sort of John Wayne type stuff, you know, bravado with a machine gun running up to a German, what they call them?
Checkpoint or something like that.
The concrete things that they built and, and stormed them and threw grenades in, all that kind of stuff. But in fact, as you and I said, probably the most graphic, illustrative description of what happened on D-Day was the opening of Saving Private Ryan, because that showed it from behind the soldiers' back, if you see what I mean, as they were going in, and bullets were coming through the human flesh and taking bone away and legs off and all that kind of, and that's what it was all about. And it must have been the most horrendous thing. Within 16 hours of my father's ship setting off, casualties were already arriving back in Portsmouth. All this happened just off Gosport, where I live now, in the Solent. Casualties were coming back to Portsmouth, and the hospitals were already full within 24 hours. The blood bank that they built up in Portsmouth, anticipating that they're going to need it for casualties coming back, which was supposed to last 10 days, lasted less than 10 hours.
Shocking.
It was horrendous, utterly horrendous.
And most of the people who were going in the direction of Normandy were about the same age as your father. They were in their 20s. Some of them were probably not even 20.
Well, I mean, the veterans who were there today, aged average age is 90.
Yeah.
So they must have been 20 on D-Day. My dad was a year older, but some of the veterans are like 17 when they go, so they're 87 now. You know, an 87-year-old veteran's quite a young man. Although obviously they're frail because of the years. But the reason why I felt it was important for us to talk about this, Mike, before we got on the show, is to contrast the difference between the generation of men. I mean, for instance, my dad was taken out of school, the Birkenhead Institute, when he was 17. He applied for both the RAF and the Navy because he was, asked to join the war effort, which he did. No problem at all. And he set sail from Liverpool in his first ship. On the same day, he got his papers through from the RAF, inviting him to go and enrol as a pilot, possibly to fly a Spitfire. One of his mates took the Spitfire option, who was the same age as him, and he was shot down in the first year of the war and killed. And my father always remembers when he came back, he was demobbed in 1946. That was 2 years after D-Day. And he went back to Birkenhead, where he comes from, and they had a victory parade. And, he tells, my dad's sadly died over 30 years ago, but he told me then, tearfully, that the friend who was called Peter, who went into the RAF, was shot down within a year. So he was only 19 actually when he was shot down as a Spitfire fighter pilot. His mother hung his RAF uniform out of the window of the house because it was on the parade route, as those who survived and came back went past. And it was so poignant that my dad survived and got back. His friend Peter from the class at the Birkenhead Institute didn't. And I just can't imagine how any young man of that age, either 17 when he joined up or 21 when he was on the D-Day landings, could possibly imagine being in that sort of position. It's impossible. For instance, my nephew, who would be my dad's grandson, who he never met, at that age, he was doing his gap year in Australia, literally bumming around Australia with a rucksack on his back.
No doubt with his family's credit cards.
Absolutely,
We're talking about footballers who are in the England squad as well, who are, very young, 20, 21 years of age. Are they mature enough to actually play in a very, very important competition? When you look back to those days, they were mature enough to be, literally fired at
they had to be
at some guns that were shooting right at them.
They had to be. We didn't have as many people in those days as we've got now, and to draw armies together, you had to go to the very youngest people you could find. The other great thing is that psychologically, the younger they were, the more fearless they were. The average age of a fighter pilot was about 20 years of age. Because these guys just got into these Spitfires 3 or 4 times a day, went up and didn't have time to think about fear or being shot down. That wasn't in their thinking was, this is quite a glamorous job, and the barmaid at the local pub in Kent or something, will quite like it when I walk in there with the wings on. It was that sort of thinking.
And they had to have the sort of positive thoughts in their head as well, that it wasn't going to happen to them, I guess. My father was not actually involved in the D-Day landings, but he joined up with the RAF at a similar age, around about 18. He had to go and do some training, and he was in Canada for quite a lot of the war. And I think as the war was coming to an end, he was actually in India, and he used to fly backwards and forwards, up and down to sort of places like Burma.
He was a bomb finder, wasn't he?
No, he was a navigator but in a Lancaster. It was a bomber, so he was being trained to get involved in bombing places. But he had some incredible stories that he told. Like, for example, just stuff that happened. One night he decided that he was going to take the night off. They were going out on some tour, and the plane came back with all the crew on it that he worked with every single day. On any other day, he'd been on the plane. and for some reason it landed wrong, flipped over and blew up, and everybody was killed.
Unbelievable.
And he talks about how weird that was, because obviously, strange feeling to not have been on the plane when he should have really been there.
Yeah. Well, before D-Day, my father was involved in Atlantic convoys. He was involved in fighting in the Mediterranean, and he got all over the place to Australia. But on an Atlantic convoy, his ship got torpedoed. It was going down, and I think he was about 19 at the time. And the captain told him to go down below to the captain's cabin and get the log. Apparently the log is everything. You have to recover the log. And as my father went down, I mean, you just can't imagine this. In the middle of the Atlantic, in the middle of the night, the ship was going down. It's filling full of water, and he had to go down 3 decks to the captain's cabin and get the log and rescue it and come back. I mean, you have somebody of 19 years of age to put themselves in that position these days, and they'd think you were stark raving mad.
Yeah, absolutely incredible stuff. Mike Parry and myself, Mike Graham, we are the two Mikes. We're talking about the D-Day landings because it is the 70th anniversary. The papers are full of fascinating stories, pictures of the veterans who are over in France at the moment. We've got lots more to talk about, but we'll be back after this.
People of Western Europe. A landing was made this morning on the coast of France by troops of the Allied Expeditionary Force. This landing is part of the concerted United Nations plan for the liberation of Europe.
That was Eisenhower's speech. I mean, it does send kind of chills up your spine. But I wonder about, I mean, obviously, our fathers were involved in the Second World War. You do wonder about sort of subsequent generations and what it means to them as well, don't you?
Yeah, I don't think they'll ever understand, to be honest. When I was tweeting out today saying we were going to talk about this on the show tonight, I got a few replied tweets from people saying, why are you supporting imperialism? Well,
really?
Whoever said that doesn't know their history. Yeah. We didn't go to conquer other lands to try and take them over. We were standing in the way of the most evil and brutal man who's ever lived and supported the most evil and brutal regime that ever existed.
Who was invading other lands.
Invading other lands and taking people's liberty, and we went there to free them. I mean, the sheer nastiness and brutality of the Nazi regime had to be seen to be believed even in this modern day and age. Genghis Khan wasn't as bad as them because they would do things like, if the resistance in France went and blew up a railway line ahead of the D-Day invasion coming to try and stop the Germans moving, their troops and all that, they would say, unless the people who did that own up right now, and there'd be 3 or 4 of them, we'll kill 1,000 people in this village. And they would go into the village and they would lock all these people in buildings and they'd set fire to them. And if any of them tried to escape, they machine gun them on the way out. Yeah. I mean, they were the most vicious, nasty, brutal regime that's ever lived. And how anybody could ever question the reason why we had to liberate Europe is beyond me.
Yeah,
beyond anybody.
And also in those days there were people who were pacifists, as some people claim to be now, but they weren't anti kind of helping out, and they would be, but they would work in hospitals. They would fly out into the war zone, and they would actually do stuff. They wouldn't just sit at home.
You needed people. You did need people in this country. I mean, there's what's that great detective series that's on about the detective during the Second World War, but he stayed here because he was such a good detective, and people were still getting murdered and all that. Yeah, it's called something quite famous. I don't know what it is. But what I'm saying is, you couldn't just abandon the country altogether. Somebody had to make the ammunition that we needed. Somebody had to build the aircraft. Somebody had to actually, do things like make sure that there were going to be electricity supplies and all this kind of stuff. So there was a big role. I mean, firemen in this country, particularly in London and the South East, particularly in towns like Coventry and Portsmouth, I mean, as brave as any troop who went onto a boat on the D-Day landings, because these guys were being bombed every night. And,
well, that's the other thing. I mean, talking about. I mean, I don't know where your mother was during this time, but my mother was in Glasgow, Clydebank, which got bombed, absolutely flattened by the Germans, because that was where a lot of the ships were being built and a lot of the military stuff was going out of. And you can't really imagine. I mean, when you watch, like I was saying to you, I watched that War Generation, that series about from the sort of German perspective of it. But as they were walking through places like Dresden and when you see movies about London, you can't really imagine walking out into the streets and finding just burning buildings, collapsed buildings. It's just bombs going off all over the place.
No, it's just incredible. My mother was born in 1933, so she remembers when she was 11, so that was 1944. She remembers seeing the aircraft going overhead, which were part of the D-Day invasion, because I mean, believe it or not, there were 4,000 ships went across the Channel. I didn't even know there was room for 4,000 ships in the English Channel. 4,000 ships, but they were backed up by something like 11,000 aircraft. Now, you couldn't park all those aircraft in the southeast of England, so many of them came from aerodromes in sort of Lancashire and Yorkshire. And she remembers standing in Hamilton Square in Birkenhead as a little girl with her little sister, who was 9 years younger than her, staring up at the sky, and she said it was 20 minutes before the planes all, finished going overhead. And these were like, bombers and everything going over on the D-Day invasion. And what you say about buildings is quite remarkable, Mike. See, I still have to really think about it deeply. I'm one generation away from the men who liberated Europe. Yeah. My father, actually, my blood father, got on this boat and went and helped liberate Europe and that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the practical physics of what we see in the aftermath of the war, you and I both know when we worked in Fleet Street, if you got to the end of Fleet Street, Ludgate Circus, went up Ludgate Hill, to the right of Ludgate Hill, there were bomb sites when we worked there in the 80s. Yeah. I mean, literally, areas that had been bombed, wrecked houses, wrecked churches and that sort of thing, which even then, in the 80s, the government hadn't got round to clearing and fixing and all that.
And rebuilding, which is an incredible situation. The paper's this morning full of lots of very poignant pictures. One on the front of the Telegraph here, which shows one veteran standing in front of a whole load of medals, messages as well, wrapped in Union flags, planted on Gold Beach, because the sheer numbers of people that were involved in this is sort of mind-boggling, really. And they've got Daily Express has reproduced their front page from Wednesday, June the 7th, 1944. Amazing to see the amount of reportage, because I guess there would have been loads and loads of reporters over there as well, travelling with them and risking their lives. Tanks 10 miles in, a whole map of where everybody was going, and little stories about individual battles and how the Germans were sort of pushed back. One picture of General Eisenhower as well. I mean, just a remarkable day.
Well, I've got a copy of the Daily Mirror on June the 7th. That was the day after. The headline is, "We hold the beachhead." And then, deck headlines, 4,000 ships and 11,000 planes take part in the attack. The German shore guns are quelled, says Churchill. Channel Island attack, 20,000 sorties onto the cliffs at Normandy. What the Huns said, they used to call them the Huns in those days. Hun now is an abusive word for a Rangers supporter in Scotland, isn't it? Right, yeah. It's not something we do. But, this story says the German radio made the first announcement to the world yesterday morning and throughout the day that their military commentators and experts never stopped talking about repelling the, quote, invaders, Minefield hazards overcome, fighting along 80 miles. Quite remarkable. And actually, Mike, and this is a bit of a technical thing for you and I as a journalist, this was the first time that reporters got what we call a byline. A byline for our listeners is a story which is written and underneath it says by Mike Parry or by Mike Graham. Well, they never used to do it in pre-war papers because it was always thought that, your craft and your art is enough. You don't need your name on it. But because this was the first time that they embedded embedded reporters with troops, first guy got one was this guy here from Ian Fife with an airborne unit. They wouldn't say which one because obviously that was secret. But for the first time, the people writing these stories were being identified as individuals.
Yeah, and there's one here in the Express, Basil Cardew, who's actually at an airfield in southern England. It says frontline RAF airfield, where the planes were all going from.
Yeah.
But the other interesting thing about all of this and the way it was covered is that this was really the only way that you found out, presumably back home, what was actually going on. I mean, people would be sitting around the radio as well, but no real, no TV, obviously no internet, nothing like that, and life was very, very different.
I mean, if you remember, Mike, the famous quote from George Bush Sr., the first Desert Storm, when he first sent the Americans in. And that was a justified war. That was to liberate Kuwait, if you remember.
Yeah.
And when he was asked by one reporter, how up-to-date was he with what was going on in the desert, he said, very up-to-date. And he said, your lines of communication are coming straight from there. He said, no, I'm just watching CNN.
Right. And that was the first kind of proper television war, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Because Vietnam was kind of covered by a lot of TV crews, but they had to go out and shoot something and then bring it back. There wasn't any
3 days later,
satellite feeds or anything like that. But I mean, because I was working in New York at the time, and I remember when I rang, the first time that I actually rang the office and said, I'm sitting here watching CNN, do you need anything from me or whatever? And they said no, because they'd now got CNN in London in the office. They didn't need anything from anybody.
Exactly.
They could just watch CNN, watch all the briefings, watch the battles going on. Incredible.
It's absolutely amazing. The only other thing I was going to say about the whole thing was, although obviously my father was involved in the sea battle and, the 4,000 ships that went over, probably the most important part of the whole thing was the Pegasus Bridge. Now, it wasn't called the Manassas Bridge in those days. It was called the Bouen Vale Bridge, but became called Pegasus because of the emblem that the paratroopers who stormed it wore, and they captured it within a couple of hours of landing. But the guy, the military commander who commanded the 6 gliders that went in, they didn't even have an engine. They were towed over to France, and then they were told, "There's the bridge. You've got to go and get it." They landed within 40 yards of the bridge, and the Germans were so shocked that they gave up immediately. And if we hadn't captured that bridge, it couldn't have succeeded, because the Germans had Panzer tank divisions on standby, and the only way they could make it to the coast was across that Pegasus Bridge, because we took it and cut it off. That stopped the Germans from fighting back. Yeah.
And I was watching on TV yesterday one of the veterans being interviewed, and he was explaining how it didn't seem anything at the time, but he said, of course, when we were jumping out of the planes, there was no sort of secondary chute. There was no kind of backup. So if the first chute didn't open, bad luck. There just wasn't one. They
were jumping into the darkness in cloud. They didn't have a clue what they were jumping into. Yeah. It could have been jumping into trees, could have been jumping into rivers, could have been anything. It was just utterly remarkable. Yeah. I mean, the sheer bravado, the sheer courage, the sheer bravery, the sheer planning. The planning alone. I mean, where I live in Gosport now, there's museums all over the place telling you what went on. And we had to lay a fuel pipe on the seabed all the way from Portsmouth to France, because we were putting so much, hardware into France. I'm talking about tanks, I'm talking about lorries, I'm talking about armoured vehicles. And
just to refuel them over there.
Yeah, just to refuel them. And the way they did it, without alerting any suspicion, was they built an ice cream factory on the Isle of Wight. And it was decorated with ice cream cones all over it to make it. In fact, it was the pumping station for the fuel to get the fuel to France. And the other things they did was around Dover and Folkestone, they had inflatable tanks and inflatable lorries, literally, that they'd been manufacturing it. Women had been
from the air. They looked like
manufacturing them in factories for the past 18 months. And a few weeks before the invasion, they blew them up. And because they didn't have satellites in those days, the Germans could only have aerial reconnaissance. It looked like we had hundreds of tanks and lorries parked in fields, and that's where the invasion was going to take place. Quite remarkable military exercise.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. We wanted to spend the first half hour of the show talking about that. If you've got any memories that you want to share, you can tell us, of course. You can text them to 81089, email via the website talksport.com, send them in via social media as well. Here's a nice one from John in Durham, who sent this into 81089 to the two mics. He said, "It's because of your fathers and many other men and women from that terrible time that me and every other good and decent person is very grateful." And he says, "You must be very proud." Thanks, John, for that. That's tremendous. I think most people in this country, apart from a very, very small minority of complete idiots, would share that sentiment. We are the two mics. Coming up next, we've got lots more to do. We're going to go to Brazil and find out what's been going on there ahead of the World Cup. And we'll be taking more of your calls as well. 08717 22 33 44. This is TalkSport.
Neymar inside the penalty area. Right-footed shot. Goal, 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 Brazil! He's fed Ronaldo from distance. Unbelievable! He's only banged it in from 40 yards into the top left-hand corner. Balotelli now, he's clear now for Italy. Balotelli finishes emphatically. Schweinsteiger rolls into his right-hand side. Muller's onside. Thomas Muller scores. 1-0 Germany. Cuts it back into the area. Benzema's there again, and he scored again. And he has just lit up the Maracanã. And Robben on the edge of the area, trying to get it onto his left foot, drives low into the goal, and what a goal from Ian Robben! What a magnificent finish from Alexis Sanchez, and Drogba heads it into the net. One back for the Ivory Coast. Magical, mesmeric, simply Lionel Messi. Fabregas through. It's Iniesta to win the World Cup for Spain. That's the goal that surely sees them crowned champions of the world.
Just 1 week away. In fact, this time next week, Mike, the first game, Brazil-Croatia, will have been played. It's incredibly close. We're going to go over now live to Brazil and speak to Joana Bueno. She's with a newspaper called Lance, a sports writer down there in Sao Paulo. Joana, very good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Hi, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, very well indeed. Thanks for joining us. It must be getting very exciting now down in Sao Paulo with really less than 7 days to go. But I was reading that there was a train strike yesterday, or today, your time, I suppose, and all the underground stations were closed, which is a bit unfortunate in terms of its timing, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, last year during the Confederations Cup, Brazilian people enjoyed, they took advantage of some of the attention from the media that we were getting in order to protest against something that are missing here. And I think that the Brazilian people are doing that again. The World Cup's coming, a lot of tourists, a lot of journalists. So to have a train strike 1 week from the World Cup, to call the media, to call attention from the media. And I think it worked.
OK, Joanna, now we've heard a little bit about some unrest. You know, it happens really before every big competition in every country. But Brazil is seen as the spiritual home of football. Because remember, about 20 years ago, when most Brazilian players played in Brazil and not in Europe, your country was so mystical that every time they got to a competition, they were everybody's second team. Everybody wanted them to win because they were, you know, the dazzling supremos from South America. What is going to happen if you don't win this one in your own country?
Well, actually, we're expecting to win, of course, and we do have a great team. But I think that mostly Brazilian people, the fans, are expecting that Brazilian team will play well. So if we lose, but we play well, I think people will be satisfied with that, and there will be no pressure, and people will be thankful for the team for that. All we want is for them to play football. So if they lose because another team played better, it's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just can't accept that. I've been to Brazil, and you know, you've only got to walk up and down the Copacabana beach for a minute to see that it's the national religion. I mean, I just can't believe what you've just told me, Joanna. It can't be true. There's going to be a riot in Brazil if you don't win,
especially if Argentina win.
No,
yeah.
No, if Argentina win, yeah, that would be a riot. But I think mostly we're expecting for the team. Our expectations are for a great performance. We Brazilian people remember the World Cup, the 1982 World Cup in Spain, more than they do at the 1994 when we won the fourth championship, our fourth title. Because in the 82 team, we had the best players in the world. We had Socrates and Falcao and Zico, and they made a fantastic team. So we remember that team with better memories than the 94 that played a football not so beautiful, but they won. So I think that's what people expect, for Brazil to play well. If they go in the pitch and, you know, they're full of themselves, just passing the ball around, expecting, waiting for the match to end, then there will be a riot.
Yeah, because Brazilian fans don't sort of stand on ceremony. They boo their team if they don't like the way they're playing,
yes.
and the style isn't quite in the kind of samba style. But how is Sao Paulo right now, Joanna? Is it beginning to gear up for everything? Sepp Blatter arrived yesterday. The FIFA kind of guys are in town. Fans presumably are going to start arriving this weekend. A lot of the squads are going to be arriving as well. Is there a sense that something special is going on?
Yeah, there is. I mean, a week ago, you could say that people who came to Brazil would say that, really, there is a World Cup going on in 2 weeks? You couldn't tell. But now people are starting to paint the streets and to hang the Brazilian flags on the wall, on the window, and getting more excited, and you can see tourists and all the teams coming, and I think now we're feeling the World Cup's coming.
Mm-hmm. It certainly is, and it's going to be live right here on TalkSport. Joanna, thank you very much indeed. Joanna Bueno there, sports writer for a newspaper called Lance down in Sao Paulo.
You'll accept what she's saying. Oh, don't worry, we'll take it on our stride if we don't win.
Yeah.
As you quite rightly said, if Argentina do win, and Argentina suddenly have a victory parade in the middle of, you know, Brasilia or somewhere, or Sao Paulo.
There is this kind of
Rio.
There's a spectre, isn't there, of Uruguay? Because I think Tim Vickery's told us this story back. I think it was back sometime in the 50s when Brazil hosted the World Cup and Uruguay came and won it.
1950, yeah.
Was it 1950? Yeah. And Uruguay came and won it. Yeah. And there are some people in Brazil who are terrified that it's going to happen again. Now, I'm not sure Uruguay are going to be that good, but I mean, you know, you can look at any one of these teams and go, well,
but Argentina have got a chance of winning in South America, haven't they?
Yeah,
of course you would. Yeah,
and so have Spain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you decked your house with World Cup wall charts and all that kind of thing?
No.
With 2 TVs ready to watch it all?
Oh, I've got the 2 TVs, but I've got a flag of St George, which I always put on my on the balcony of my roof garden, and that stays there throughout the competition.
Did anybody see that?
Yeah, you can see it from the street.
Can you?
Definitely, yeah. It's a penthouse, man, and it's the flag is put out on the front, and that's it. And if people don't like it, that's hard luck. Because actually, last time I did this during a competition, some fella from the council turned round and said, there's a bylaw here where you're not allowed to put...
Really?
Well, do you know what it's designed, Mike? I'll tell you what it's designed for, because I live in an exclusive block, right?
Do you?
It's designed. Yeah, of course I do.
I've been there.
And yeah, exactly.
You don't have to tell me it's exclusive.
And
I know it's not.
It's designed so that people, when they've done their washing, can't hang their towels over the rails on the balcony, you see what I mean? To make it look unseemly, to make it look like a holiday camp, to make it look like a sort of down market sink estate, because that's not what it is, you see what I mean?
But you own the place, why shouldn't you be able to do what you want?
Well, no, there are bylaws. I mean,
That's rather needless, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's not, because if not, you'll get somebody doing their washing, right, and they'll string literally a washing line up across the old roof garden or something like that, and they'll hang all their washing on it. It'll be flapping around in the wind.
But if it's their property, they should be able to do that.
No,
None
rubbish.
of the council's business.
No, rubbish. It would affect the value of my property if people looked at my property and thought, I quite like his property, but the people above and below him, there's nobody above me, obviously, but the people below him are a right bunch of peasants because they hang all their towels over the railings on their balcony,
I've never heard of
and
it.
it makes it look
Rubbish.
like a beachside 2-star hotel in somewhere like...
Lanzarote?
I was going to say Malaga or somewhere like that, you know what I mean? And we can't have it looking like that because it's stockbroker about Surrey.
It's all right for you to drape a flag, though. You got special permission, did you?
Well, no, I didn't. That's what I said. The guy from the council came round and said, you shouldn't be having this. And I said, well, I'm sorry. As far as I'm concerned, it's a patriotic duty. And if you want to make an issue of it, I'll make an issue of it with you. And I will go and stand outside the library in Epsom with a placard saying, no, I will, saying, down on the council, patriotism has been lost in Surrey.
And he went away, did he?
He went away, yeah. Well, I've never heard from them again, but I just told him I wasn't taking it down. It's simple as that.
So you weren't concerned that by putting a flag out you were somehow lowering the price of the property?
No.
Or making yourself look like a peasant or,
No.
worrying the neighbours?
No, there's a purpose for the flag, and the purpose of the flag is to show your patriotism towards your nation. And I don't care about people calling me a Little Englander or something like that. I am English. I'm very supportive of the national team. I want Ross Barkley to emerge as the greatest young footballer in the world by the end of this World Cup. I have no hesitation in putting a flag up. But if anybody else drapes their towels over their balcony, I'm afraid I would have to step in there and I'd be the first to protest.
Yeah, of course you would, because it's all about you and it's all about being selfish.
There's one woman, actually, and she had exotic clothing taste, to put it mildly. Exotic?
Meaning what?
Well, very frilly underwear, if you see what I mean. And she did
frilly underwear?
Yeah, and she did string up a washing line across the whole of her balcony. This was down on the coast. And hung all this stuff up and, cars
She
going...
wasn't hanging them up for the incoming sailors or the guys coming off the boats, was she?
No, she wasn't. It's although it is on the edge of the harbour, but it did cause a distraction without a shadow of a doubt, you know what I mean? And it was unwanted attention, which I could have done with that. I don't know what you're laughing at, Mike.
Well, because one, I don't see why it would bother you, and two...
Well, it is. It's very unseemly. It's very unseemly.
How unusual were the frilly knickers? What's unusual?
Well, I mean, they looked like the sort of, the sort of briefs that a girl on Page 3 would wear, you know what I mean? And that sort of stuff. And lots of them. I mean, and, flapping around in the wind and all that. I mean, could get people a little overexcited, that was all.
Well,
particularly if they're driving a car or something.
I'm just trying to get to the point. I'll tell you, when I was in Glasgow, the time that Johnny Wilkinson made that drop goal and England won the World Cup down in Australia, and it was a fantastic moment. And, we decided there's only one thing to do, it's to hang some kind of flag out. We didn't have any kind of flag, but we had a Union Jack towel. So I was just going to put it out the window, and it was a Union Jack.
Right.
And within about 5 minutes, people were chucking eggs at it, throwing rocks at it. Because
this is in Glasgow.
This is in Glasgow because they were obviously of the Republican bent.
Do you know what?
And they thought we were Rangers fans.
Do you know what, Mike? This is amazing.
Ridiculous.
This is amazing. I spoke to some local politician last week down in Surrey, and he said, the worst thing that could happen for unity between Scotland and England, I'm not getting into anything that's happening politically, but just general relationships over the decades have been soured by England's victory in the 1966 World Cup because the Scots always accuse us of being arrogant, rubbing their noses in it, boasting about our prowess.
And mentioning it all the time.
And mentioning it all the time.
As you've just done.
Yeah, exactly. So we go and win the World Cup now, and that's going to put, England-Scottish relationship back 100 years.
It probably will.
Because, they start getting a bit fed up with us again because we'd mention it all the time. Well, of course you mention it when you win things. You do. I mean, crikey, every time I go to Scotland, all I hear about is Celtic 1967. Just to remind me that, Manchester United weren't the first British club to win the European Cup. It was the Bonnie Boys of Celtic in 67.
It certainly was. We are the Two Mikes. We've got lots more to do. You can call us 08717 22 334. We'll have more coming up next.
Crazy, but that's how it goes. Millions of people.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham and he is Mike Parry. I'm delighted to say that we're here for nearly another 2 and a bit hours, actually. Got a great text here, Mike, from Derek in our fan Derek in Pencoed, the place where you always mispronounce it. He says, Mike, did you know that the fuel pipe under the sea on D-Day was called Pluto and apparently stood for pipeline under the ocean?
Yeah, very good. Well done. Thank you very much indeed, Derek. That's the first bit of useful information you've ever supplied to me in 12 or 15 years of broadcasting with Talk Sport. You're a winner, Derek. You've tried and finally registered. Thank you, my boy.
Here's a couple that have come in about D-Day as well. Gary the Milky says, hi, the Two Mikes. It's stories and times like these that makes me proud to be an Englishman. Here's one from someone who doesn't attach his name, unfortunately. He says, my grandfather was a gunner in Sunderland in the Second World War. I'm only 30 years old, but he took me to see the actual plane he flew at Duxford, and he cried. Made me realise the poignancy of the era. And
I mean, that was the worst job of the lot, Mike. Sorry, interrupting. They're called a tail end Charlie. Well, in fact, they call it arse end Charlie. The gunner in the back of a Lancaster bomber, where, according to my father, they more than often. I think the mortality rate was 1 in 2. How about that? How about volunteering for a job like that? And you had to volunteer to be terrible things because they used to get so badly shot up by planes that would come and attack the plane from the back. And my dad literally said it was no joke. They used to have to hose what was left of those poor young men out of the back of the planes because they were so badly
blown to smithereens.
Exactly. Terrible.
Listen to this from David in Cheltenham, who's also texted in 1089. Following up the comments on D-Day landings and 70 years, my dad Rex Winsell was there. He's 90 in September. He was shot on day 4 of the landings and hit by shrapnel. He's had a problem recently with his leg. Turns out it's a piece of shrapnel which is still there. The local hospital has given him an appointment to remove it, and it's exactly 70 years to the day that he was first hit. My dad, the hero. So he's carried a bit of shrapnel around with him all his life.
Well, a lot of these guys did. Sometimes if a bit of shrapnel got too close to your spine or one of your vital organs, it was too dangerous to operate to take it out.
Yeah, listen to this. This is a great one from Ant, who's an Everton fan. He says, during the war, my granddad pushed an unexploded bomb in a wheelbarrow full of ash from Victoria Road to the docks and then tipped it into the Mersey.
Good God.
I mean, these were the kind of things that people had to do, I suppose.
Yeah, my father was born and brought up in Prenton in Birkenhead, which is right next to Tranmere's ground, but he was always an Evertonian. When he was called up, I mean, this is just to demonstrate the mood of people in those days when they knew war was imminent. He got the Mersey ferry over to the other side, to Liverpool, and then he walked up to Goodison Park, walked round it, and then walked back to the ferry. And when his mum said, what have you been doing? He said, I went to see Goodison because I'm not sure I'll ever see it again. Yeah,
incredible.
Unbelievable. The mental... This is that people approached this massive world crisis with. Unbelievable.
It makes the various problems that we're going to talk about now over the course of the show that have affected some people in worse ways than others seem very, very minimal. But we're going to talk about them nonetheless.
We must.
And we must start to. We talked earlier on in the week actually about Adam Lallana and his football pitch which was put up without planning permission, and he may or may not have to tear it down for the cost of £40,000 that he's put there.
I can't see what harm it's doing. Can you?
Well, the neighbours are complaining about it. That's the thing. You're saying to me, you complain about the neighbours putting washing up and towels out. Unfortunately, everybody's got a neighbour like you who wants to moan and groan about something. Like the noise coming from your flat, or the fact that your television's on too often, or the kids are banging the wall.
He's a professional footballer. He needs a football pitch to practice on. He's an international. He plays for England, so leave him alone. That's my view.
That is your view, is it?
Yeah.
Well, what about planning permission in general? Because you're telling me the other day when we were having a chat about it that planning rules haven't really changed for a very, very long time, and all garages, for example, and you're a man that likes to drive a big car, as I do, garages are now too small to put cars
don't
in.
throw this on me. This is all about your car.
What's it got to do with me?
Suddenly, it's got everything to do with you. You suddenly bring a new tank to work, okay? And it is a tank. It's a massive car, your new Land Rover,
It's a very big car because I need to ferry a lot of people around in it.
No, because you are actually a very big guy. I mean, you know, I could be unkind and call you a fat slob.
Well, compared to you, almost everybody's big.
Well, that's... Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, half the time you tell me I'm fat, now you tell me I'm a midget, yeah?
Well, you are.
Oh, I'm a fat midget, am I?
Yes.
Oh, right, I
That's
see.
entirely correct.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you very much indeed. Well, let me just tell you this. You keep boasting about, you know, this armchair type seat you've got in your Land Rover.
Don't boast about it at all.
How it eats up tarmac on the road below you, and
that's rubbish.
You feel like, you know, you're driving on top of everybody and all that. You know, cool guy.
Listen, I'm not a boastful person. I do not boast.
All I said to you was, you know, when you were, you know, giving it mouth about your new vehicle.
You're just annoyed because it's a better car than yours. That's why, isn't it? This is what this is all about.
No.
It is. It's a better car.
I wouldn't want a car that size. I believe.
You need a stepladder to get into it.
I believe. I won't answer that. I believe. If you get what I mean. I believe that the size of a man's car reflects the size of a man's ego. I mean, for instance, I would never drive round in a Rolls-Royce.
I find Rolls-Royces quite ugly, actually.
I think they're quite ugly and they're quite big and they're quite tank-like. Now, you drive around in this, and all I said to you was, I said, you're going to pay a price for a car that size, and you've only got the car that size to match your ego.
I paid a price when I went to fill it up with petrol because it had a quarter of a tank in it, and I thought, well, I better put some petrol in it. 103 quid.
Well, I'm afraid that's the price of trying to, you know, drive around and see, and impress everybody, and Mr. Big Guy.
Listen, I'm not trying to impress anybody.
Yes, you are.
It's a perfectly functional car. I need it because the road that I live down is not. It's a private road. It's not covered in tarmac, so I need a four-wheel drive vehicle because it's also uphill for when the snow comes. I won't be able to get out of there if it snows, right? So I need a four-wheel drive. I've got 2 kids and a dog.
And how have you coped until now?
Well, it hasn't snowed. It's only moved there in December. So we haven't had any snow. Didn't have any snow all year.
You've had snow in your life before when you haven't had a 4x4.
Yeah, but I haven't lived down a hill which I need to get out of in order to go to the
Let's get to the point of this story.
I'm going to know, because what I don't want is you making out like I'm some kind of egomaniac.
Yeah, you are.
Who's driving around in some big car because it makes me feel good. It is a family car, and it needs to be that big to cater for all the members of my family.
Right,
because, as you know, I've got a lot of them.
All I said to you is, I said, you'd pay a price for that when you try and get that in your garage. And you said, what do you mean? And all I did was give you the benefit of my knowledge, because, as you know,
Thank you.
I did study urban estate management at the University of Trent. Yes, I did.
I thought you studied history.
No, I didn't. No,
What is urban estate
I
management?
naturally know about history
what is
because
urban
I'm aware of my environment.
We're giving you a quiz on the Wild West later, by the way. What on earth is urban estate management?
Urban estate management...
Street cleaning.
No. Urban estate management is the husbandry of the land. And
well, not
things,
in an urban setting. There isn't any land.
You put houses on land, and therefore they become urban, okay? And it's basically being...
It's a load of old cobblers is what it is, isn't it?
It's like being an estate agent, really. You've got to know all about properties and all that if you're buying and selling them.
So
and
you did a
kind of
degree
stuff.
in being an estate agent?
No, I did a degree in urban estate management, which is property management, i.e...
Well, what can you tell me, for example, from your degree course that would be of any use to anybody?
Well, I can tell you one thing, which is what I've been trying to tell you until you started interrupting, you fat gob, and that is the width of a garage in any normal dwelling in this country is exactly 7 feet, the entrance to the garage. Right. It has been like that for 50 years.
It's too small.
The only thing you can get into a garage 7 foot wide these days is a Ford Anglia circa 1955 or a Mini.
Right.
So you won't be able to get your car in. But it's not a problem.
I haven't got a garage, so I'm not worried about that.
Well, if you did have it, it'd only be 7 feet wide. You wouldn't be able to get your jumbo-sized car in. So what I'm saying is, most garages now are completely useless. They're just, hopeless. So people are
people just use them to store stuff in, don't they?
Well, either use them to store, or they convert them into, like, a spare bedroom or something like that, but they've got to put a damp-proof course in to do that. That's something else I know about, damp-proof courses.
Wow, it's really worthwhile.
And foundations.
3-year course
and how you put a roof on a house and all that. I advised my sister when she put a new roof on her house how to do all that. And what I'm saying is that because they haven't widened the width of the garage door, the planners, the urban estate developers and planners, we've got floods all over the place.
Why?
Because what these numpties are doing is they're saying, well, I can't get the car in the garage anymore, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to concrete over my front garden, which usually has grass on it.
Why don't they just park it in a bit of concrete before the garage?
Well, because some people don't have that benefit. Some people don't have that benefit.
Are you saying that people have houses where the garage is behind the grass, so they drive over the grass?
No. They sometimes have garages at the back of the house, or they sometimes have garages at the side of the house, right? And
is that where yours is?
What?
Your garage?
No, I've got an underground car park, haven't I? Because I live in a...
So you're not worried about this?
An exclusive
Although I
apartment
might not
block.
be able to get into your underground car park because it's quite low, isn't it?
Well...
I need 6 foot 6 clearance.
Can you just let me finish? The reason why you
Hurry
get
up.
floods now in urban areas, the reason why you see town centres filling up with water is because everybody's gone and got rid of their little lawns in the front of their garden. They've concreted them over. And that means now there's nowhere for the water to run away to. There's no grass for it to sink into. The drains are overloaded. People are parking their cars on concrete slabs where there should be grass, and that has led to urban decay. And the urban decay is what is going to lead to... a horrendous problem. By the way, did you see the forecast today? Another one of these numpties from the Met Office.
I'm waiting for the final kicker to this latest
Well,
scare story.
I've given the final kicker.
We've had the runaway TB cat. We've had, we're all going to die because the bees aren't protecting us.
I've given you the final story.
What's it going to be? We're all going to drown? Is that what you're telling me?
No. Well, yeah, we'll be walking around in 3 or 4 foot of water every time it rains because everybody's got rid of their garages. Now, you know why this happened? Because cars these days are made with such good paint that they don't rust. Now, the reason why we all put our cars in garages in the 1950s and 1960s, we had Ford Cortinas and things like that, is because when it rained...
I didn't have a car in the 1960s.
When it rained, the rain used to actually get through the paint and the car would fall to pieces within a few years because it would die of rust, right?
But
these days, they don't. They don't.
What is the point of all this?
Well, the point is what I'm telling you.
Me all this?
What I'm telling you
minutes
is
we've had of this nonsense.
you can save town centres from being flooded on a permanent basis by widening the width of the garage in the average home from 7 feet to 9 feet. Then you could get your car in, then you wouldn't have to park it on the concrete where the grass used to be.
So, Mr. Genius Urban Planner, how are you going to do that when the houses are right next to each other because they're semi-detached and they've got a garage each? Where are you
I'm talking about new builds. I'm talking about when you build new houses.
Oh, really?
I'm saying that you've got to make an allowance now for a wider garage, because if you don't, there'll be too many cars parked on the streets, as there already are. You know what it's like in Islington and suburbs of London, where people go around literally nudging each other's cars out the way, bumper to bumper, and that's going to keep happening until we widen garages. You've got to widen the garage, I'm telling you.
There's another 2 hours of this to come. He's Mike Parry, I am Mike Graham. We've got lots more to talk about. We're going to talk about why having a happy marriage is more important for women than it is for men. But if a woman earns more than a man, it's actually got a big chance of being much, much happier. Also, we're going to be giving you a little test on the Wild West, because you claim to be an expert on that. We're going to be talking about tractor beams and teleporting as well in the last hour of the show. Plus, we'll find out what's going on in the transfer market as well. We'll also have a look at Wayne Rooney and some of those stories that are making the back pages this morning. We should talk about Ross Barkley as well, because you called him Ross Barley the other day on Twitter.
Yeah, I missed out the old K. That's right,
yeah, amazing. So just before we headed out of that kind of madness of how to save the planet because of all the floods that are going to happen, how about this story that's in one of the papers this morning that says deadly heat waves could hit the UK every other year by 2040. So now the weathermen are saying, well, forget about all this flooding that's going on, forget about all this mild climate stuff. We're going to have more and more extremes, which is why I said to you I need a car to get me through the snow, because it's going to be probably feet and feet of snow in the winter.
They're all mad.
And in the summer, there's going to be loads and loads of heat waves.
When are these guys going to give up? This is what they call the greenhouse effect brigade, isn't it? Once again telling us that
is it the University of East Anglia by any chance?
Well, the University of East Anglia has completely discredited its meteorological division, because so much information that should have been put out and made available to the public was suppressed because it didn't stand up the greenhouse effect theory.
Yeah, they were making up those hockey stick graphs, weren't they? And sort of like pretending that this was the projected result.
Absolutely. When are they going to give up the idea that the planet's going to burn and fizzle up because of man-made gases, which is a load of cobblers? Absolute nonsense. Most of the methane that goes into the air we know comes from cows, right?
That's true.
That's something we know. And, I mean, for instance, Mark, I've told you this already, and I'll tell you again. The Drax Power Station in Yorkshire is now to be fuelled by wood chip, not coal.
Wood chip?
Yeah. Now, you can
So why are they cutting trees down for that, then?
Well, let me explain, right? So there's plenty of coal in Yorkshire, and the remaining mines could easily service the coal you need for the Drax Power Station. And what these numpties don't realise is the stuff that comes out of the giant coolers in power stations is steam. It's steam that's let off from the burning of the coal to generate the electricity, right? But it's nothing more poisonous than steam, okay?
And you're talking about like those big cooling towers?
Yeah, the big
those
cooling
things that are
towers.
shaped like egg timers.
Yeah, that's right. If you fly from London to Glasgow, you fly over them, and you see them all the time.
There's a big, is it Ferry Bridge, the one where there's a load of them? Is it Ferry Bridge?
I don't know, but this is called Drax, the Drax Power Station. It's world famous. Everybody knows it, right?
I don't.
Now, well, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Now, the point I'm making is this. They've decided, I tell you what, let's go all eco.
Yeah.
And instead of burning coal, which we think is evil, even though it's the cheapest
It's a fossil fuel, don't you know?
Yeah, and cleanest way to do it, right? To any sensible, common sense like person who's got a brain in his head. No, we'll make it wood chips. So do you know what they do?
But where do they get the wood chips from?
Well, I'm just about to tell you. They are cutting down forests in Canada, loading all the trees, like really valuable trees from, British Columbia or somewhere like that, onto huge freight
Boats,
ships, which they're then sending...
In Hudson Bay, probably.
In Hudson Bay. They are then sending them 3,500 miles across the Atlantic and then right round Britain to the other side.
So they can burn them.
So they're then offloading them in Yorkshire, putting them through a chipping machine and then putting them into the Drax Power Station.
That's ridiculous.
It is so ridiculous that they're burning about twice or three times
mad,
the amount of energy that you get from digging coal out of the ground into transporting trees from Canada. And by the way, they're destroying these forests in Canada.
Well, who's responsible for making that decision?
A nutter. Don't ask me.
Some kind of government minister?
Well, don't ask me what the nutter's name is, but it's some power group.
Are you sure about this?
I'm absolutely certain about it. I may
have to check on this because it sounds ridiculous. I mean, it's similar to the thing when they started recycling cardboard and all of that. What happens is they've decided now that they can't recycle any more cardboard, so when it gets taken to the recycling plant, they just leave it there for a while, because what they used to do was flog it to the Chinese and put it on a massive great barge and sail it all the way back to China and repackage it up as new cardboard and send it back. The amount of energy wasted in doing all of those things far outweighed whatever it would have not been. Because I just burn cardboard.
Yeah.
I just chuck it in the incinerator and burn it.
I don't.
Well, you haven't got an incinerator. You haven't got a garden, have you?
No, it's true. No, I don't have a lot of cardboard, but packaging on eggs and things is...
you had a problem opening your headphones,
Easter eggs, we did, Now, listen, I am insisting, because I am so fed up to the back teeth of you casting doubt on every intellectual thing I tell you. Yes, you do.
I just
you try to
question it.
make out that I've just been released from an asylum and come up with some other mad theory.
It does occasionally sound like that.
No, it doesn't, because I do my research on things that I talk about, and all you do is sit there and mock them. I'm insisting now you instruct a producer behind that glass
I don't go around instructing
to
anybody.
look at the circumstances behind the Drax Power Station in Yorkshire to find out whether what I'm saying is 100% accurate or 101% accurate.
Well, I will ask them to do that. If you wouldn't mind, Mr. Dave, the producer, could you please look up the Drax Power Station? He's not even paying attention at the moment. Could you look up the Drax Power Station and find out whether
and find
or
out
not...
the facts, please?
No, he's not even looking. He's not even watching.
Yeah.
He's too busy talking. He's too busy chatting up the girl in there.
No.
It's a shocking
It's
state
an
of
absolute disgrace.
He can't even hear.
What kind of a scene is that?
He can't even hear
Is he
it.
paying any attention whatsoever?
He's not paying any attention.
Hasn't got any headphones on?
No.
Throw
Shocking.
something at the glass.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. We'll throw a brick at it.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, never mind all that. We'll get him to check it later when he's stopped trying to wend his way through his romantic world. What we want to talk about really is not just the heat waves that are hitting the UK, but the weather that's going to be happening all the way through the next kind of. If you're talking about the way they're building houses and the way that they're planning them, the point is they can't build houses anymore in this country without causing flooding, because at the end of the day they're putting them on floodplains. You saw what happened to the Somerset levels.
What about Brownside? What about Brownside?
Brownfield sites. Brownfield sites.
Brownfield sites.
What about them?
Well, we should develop those. We should be knocking down, decrepit old homes in urban areas and replacing them with new homes. That's what we should be doing. Not going out into fields and building vast new estates of urban dwellings.
Why?
Well, because there's a green belt, and we don't want to eat up too much of the green belt.
But the trouble is, people can't live where there isn't any work, and the problem is all the work is in London, right? Mostly. I mean, there's a lot of places.
Yeah, and there's a lot of brownfield sites in London that need developing.
Yeah, but who's going to buy those, and who's going to develop them?
Well, people do, because
you're supposed to have all the answers with this urban course that you did.
I have got the answers if you just listen. The point is that the value of property in London is going up at such an enormous rate because demand is outstripping supply.
It's gone up 20% in the last year,
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Incredible. Well, you must be doing well with all that property that you've got.
Well, I don't like to talk about that.
I know you don't like to talk about it, but one day you'll have to talk about it, because you'll have to reveal
what I'm saying
precisely
is,
what your property portfolio is.
Why? What's it got to do with you?
Well, I want to know.
Why?
Because I'm interested.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, and how much debt have you got then?
I haven't got any debt.
Haven't you? And how much wealth have you got?
Hardly any.
Right.
I'm pretty much flat.
Okay, yeah. So
That's the way I like to live.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to know that anyway, and I'm not telling you anything about my circumstances. The minute I do, you'll start passing the begging bowl in this direction, won't you? Huh?
I will not at all.
Yes, you will.
I've only ever asked to borrow money from you once, and, I paid you back.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I did.
Oh, perhaps you could remind me of the location where, the Spondoolies, or whatever they're called, came back in the opposite direction.
Well, it was when I forgot my wallet the other month, remember?
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. Now, we won't get into that. Now,
I've got some other news for you
right,
on the planning front. Did you know, and I only know this because somebody actually put it on my Facebook page and said, you must draw Mr. Parry's attention to this. They are opening the first ever drive-through Kentucky Fried Chicken outlet, and do you know where they're doing it?
No. Gosport, that's where I live.
So I know that's where you live, that's why I'm telling you.
And where is this going to be?
Well, I don't know. So
it's not going to be next door to me.
Well, imagine if they opened it next door to your luxury dwelling,
Yeah.
where you park both your cars and those two car parking spaces you've got.
They can't. Next door is a lorry park. Okay.
Well, that sounds like a prime location because it won't stay as a lorry park forever, will it? If you think about it, right? If there's a lorry park next to your dwelling, then that is a prime location for building something. You know as well as I do.
The council run it, and remember, Gosport's a port by definition, so they have to have lorry parks where lorries can park up overnight. They can't get rid of that.
Is that so? Is there a load of lorries parked next door to your place?
Well, not loud, maybe half a dozen. They're
Really?
all foreign lorries and things.
Doesn't that bring down the price of the property?
No, of course it doesn't.
That's horrendous.
No, it's behind walls, high walls, and all that kind of
So
stuff.
they're all
Don't worry
hidden
about that. Yeah, all hidden away. And anyway, they wouldn't put a Kentucky Fried Chicken there because, in addition to my exclusive block, there's another 2 exclusive blocks being built in the on the same road. So they wouldn't lower the tone of the place.
Where are they going to build it then?
Well, I've no idea, but I don't want filthy old chicken bones being thrown around.
That's what's going to happen. There's going to be chicken bones everywhere. There's going to be rubbish everywhere
Wrappers.
because the wrappers
Not
and the
having
boxes,
it.
it's all going to be all over the street.
It can't be next door to me because if it was, you'd have had something from the planning department now saying you can appeal against this, and I would appeal. And in fact, I'd do a J.R. Ewing style appeal. I'd make them an offer they couldn't refuse. Believe me.
Turn up in the court or something, take them all the way.
Well, I'd organise, I'd mobilise.
Would you?
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Well, what about going to have you ever been to a drive-through food outlet?
I've been to a McDonald's one.
Have you?
Where you drive up to...
I did it once and I couldn't understand the guy who was talking to me. So
Yeah,
I've
had that problem. And also you speak into like a little microphone at the entrance to it.
Yeah.
And then you have to drive round and you get to the other side and they give you the wrong order all the time.
Well, what often happens in this country, because for some reason, I mean, they can make it work in America, they can't make it work here. I don't know why it is. You go there and you say, right, I want to take away this and I want to drive away with it. And instead they come, you get to the second window and they say, oh, can you just go and park over there? And I'm like, well, if I wanted to park over there, I would have parked over there, got out of the car and gone inside.
Oh, it's not a drive-through.
The point is, I want to get my stuff, I want it in a drive-through and I want to leave.
I tell you, I do like the old Kentucky Fried Chicken, I have to say. It's much healthier for you than a lot of other foods.
It's not one of my favourite things.
Oh, I do. I like it.
I don't think, actually, with a new car, I'd be able to get into one of those things. I'd probably wreck it, wouldn't I?
I think you would. I think you'd be very careful. And by the way, there are a lot of roads, and some of them are in London suburbs, where you get to the end of the road and they try to keep lorries out. So they put 2 metal posts up and make it so narrow to get through, your car probably wouldn't get through.
It might not. Well, it's got on the inside of the dashboard, it's got what the height is. It's 6'6", so you need clearance at 6'6" in order to go. But you can actually lower the car because it's got this second setting. So if you get to one of these places like an underground car park and you can't get in, you can lower the car by like 4 inches.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because I was with Al once in... He had a 4x4. It was the old BMW X5 or something like that. And we scraped the roof of a car park.
Was he driving?
Yeah, he was driving.
It's terrifying, that, isn't it?
Well, the problem was, it was a bit unfortunate because he'd just come back from skiing. Or he was just going skiing, so he bolted one of these like sort of coffin type things on the roof.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you put the skis in and all that kind of stuff, and forgotten to take it off. So as we went to the car park, this terrible crunching noise.
Did he knock it off the top?
Well, it didn't knock it off, but I mean, it caused a severe amount of like rearrangement of the roof of the car. You know what I mean? On another occasion, actually, this is quite interesting. Al parked his car. It was a Mercedes. In the underground car park of his Canary Wharf flat. Right. Canary Wharf, for the benefit of our listeners who don't live in London, lucky you. I wouldn't mind living in Northumberland. But it's what do you call Canary Wharf? An adjunct to London?
No, it's part of London. It's got a London postcode.
Yes, I know it has.
SE14. It's London.
Yeah, but it's on the Docklands. It's the old Docklands, isn't it?
It's still London, though.
Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to explain to the listeners.
It's on the Isle of Dogs. That's where it is.
Well, it's not on the Isle of Dogs, but it's on the Docklands. Anyway, the point of my story
What is the point of your story?
He parks his Merc there, and we go away for a week. I mean, so all I'm saying is we left the office, went to Al's place, got his car, then a car came and picked us up, took us to City Airport, which is only, just down the road, so to speak. And when we come back, like 10 days later, so I don't know what job we'd been on, must have been a tournament or something like that, whatever, a pipe immediately above Al's car had fractured, a water pipe. No, seriously. The water had been dripping onto Al's car for 10 days,
right.
and the car was full of water. So it was, the old like comedy film when you open the door.
Yeah, the water.
That's exactly what happened. It was unbelievable. I don't know how the water got in the car. It must have been a broken seal on the back window or something like that. But this water had been running out at a trickle, really. But for 10 days, you see what I mean?
Unbelievable.
And the car was full of water, and it was written off. I mean, it was like 20 grand Merc or something like that. It was amazing.
Incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Mike Parry and myself, Mike Graham, are going to be back with some more stuff. We're going to be talking next to Sybil Weiser, who's a contributing editor at Money magazine.
Name.
It's a great name. I don't know if I pronounced it right. She's going to tell us why couples are happier when the woman earns more than the man.
What a load of rubbish.
This is TalkSport. This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham, and he is Mike Parry, and we're going to talk now, Mike, about one of the more important social kind of mores of our society, marriage. You, of course, have never been married. I've been married once. I know that you always say you've been married loads of times. I've actually only been married once. And when I was married,
you've procreated a lot of children outside of a marriage.
I've had two lots of children with two women. If that somehow offends you, I'm terribly sorry.
No, it doesn't offend me.
I'm not married the second time.
You've got the moral compass of a deranged blackbird.
A deranged blackbird?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't heard that before. Now, listen, we're going to talk to Sybil Weiser, who's an expert on money and possibly on marriage as well. I don't know. But there's an article that's come out in which they found, by studying this, that couples are far happier when the woman earns more than the man. Not a situation I was in my marriage, to be honest. But
what a load of utter rubbish.
Well, hang on. Before that happens, why don't we just find out from Sybil what the truth of it all is. Sybil, a very good morning to you.
Hello there.
Very kind of you to join us. As I said, we're not coming at this from the same perspective. Mr. Parry's never been married. I have been married. I don't know whether you've been married. Have you, Sybil?
I am currently married. Yes.
Oh, you are. Are you richer than your husband?
We've shifted roles over our marital over the time we've been married.
Oh, okay. So tell us about this study that makes out...
Well, hang on, sorry. If they've shifted roles, who now is the bigger earner of the two of you, Sybil, please?
That's the personal question.
He is now. He is right now.
Oh, so you were initially...
Exactly.
Ah, well, you see, now this backs my argument, Sybil, because, you see, that would have emasculated your husband as a male, thinking, this isn't right. I am, the hunter-gatherer, the man. I've got to be the main breadwinner and provider. And he's gone out and made something of himself, and good luck to the boy.
I know, but, it's interesting because our survey really did not find that it found that husbands whose wives earn more appeared to be more satisfied.
Yeah, so I suppose...
Isn't that interesting?
It is interesting, and also I would imagine in most...
Load of gobbledygook.
What do you know about marriage? You've never been married?
I've had relationships, Mike. Sybil, can I tell you this?
I bet you one thing, right? Sorry, Sybil. You've never had a relationship with a woman who earned more money than you, have you?
Well, she didn't then. No. She didn't then, but years later, she became like a millionaire broker in New York.
Oh, yeah.
We all know what we're talking about here. Now, Sybil,
I wish.
Exactly. Now, Sybil, let me put this to you, please. Although Mike Graham, my colleague here, makes a big thing about I've never been married, that's only because I've not actually gone and tied the knot. However...
Because no one will marry you.
I have, however, had a series of relationships, close relationships, but I can tell you honestly, Sybil, without a word of a lie, I have never allowed a woman with whom I've had a relationship to buy me a drink or pay for a meal or pay for a holiday or buy a tank full of fuel for the car or anything like that, because I believe it is my role to provide in a relationship entirely and wholly.
Sybil, you can see why he hasn't ever got married, can't you now?
I see. Yeah, wholly meaning you would prefer not to be married to a woman, not to work at all.
No, I don't know if she works, but as far as I'm concerned...
As long as it's a menial job, he's quite happy.
No. That's, you see, once again, Mike Graham's having a go at me. That's because for a lot of the time, I've been going out with secretaries who sort of worked in the same organisation as me, Sibel.
He preyed on them because they worked for him.
No, that's not true at all. And the point I'm making, Sibel, is I don't care what a woman earns, but she can use that money to spend it on clothes or whatever she wants to do, whereas I look after the important things, you know, like the purchase of a car, the holidays, the restaurants we go to, all that kind of stuff, and I think that is a man's role.
Do you mind if we just stop talking about you and we actually talk about the study?
I'm only trying to illustrate personal experience.
Yes, thank you very much. Sibel, so, I mean, what I was going to say to you was it must be less likely that in terms of the married couples that you look at, where the woman earns more than the man, because it is more normal. I don't want to use the word normal, but it's more kind of expected, I suppose, for the man to earn more than the woman.
More common.
Common, that's a good word.
It's more common, exactly, yes. And yes, in our survey, in more of the couples, the man earned more.
Right.
Am I saying that right?
And
yes, a greater percentage of men were the breadwinners.
And did the men who said they were happier when the woman earns more than them, did they say why? I mean, was it evident as to why they would say that?
You know, we didn't ask them exactly why. We asked them to rate their marriages on a scale of 1 to 5. We asked them to rate their sex lives on a scale of 1 to 5. And then we looked at those responses compared to what each person in the couple made. Right. So we were able to break it down by, you know, women makes more, men makes more. And what we found was that in the marriages where the woman makes more, the men expressed more satisfaction. They gave more of them gave their relationship on 5 or on the higher of the parts of scale than lower. And
having listened to Mr. Parry's kind of soliloquy there about what he thinks and expects from a woman and what he allows her to do, I mean, does it change the dynamic? I mean, I don't want to ask you any personal questions, but does it change the dynamic in the marriage if you are earning more than your husband?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, I won't speak just from personal experience, but I think that it definitely does. I mean, because we found that women who earned more, or just were higher earners in general, played a greater role in the family finances. So typically, if a woman was a higher earner, she tended to make more of the decisions and be involved in, you know, say, investing and retirement planning and those kinds of things that, you know, you were just saying that, you know, you would prefer that the woman doesn't do at all.
Yeah. Now, Sibel,
so there was a definite correlation there.
Now, Sibel, you come from the United States of America. That is a country which houses one of the most glamorous industries in the world. That's Hollywood, acting and all that. Now, Sibel, is it not true that every time a glamour couple get together, once the woman's career starts to get better than the man's career, so the actress is suddenly becoming more successful than the actor, and then by definition, that means she's earning bigger money, getting more money for bigger roles in bigger films, the marriage always collapses.
I have seen this happen, yes.
Well, there you go.
He's happy now because you've actually confirmed one of the things of the many that he said. Yeah. Sibel, listen, thank you very much
Can't
indeed.
Sibel answer that question, please, more fully?
She just said she agrees with you.
Yeah, sure.
What more do you want?
And well, what I'm saying is that not an example of the fact that men actually do worry about the lady in their life earning more money?
Well, but it's not clear if is that because she's getting better film roles, or has that been, you know, people love her on the internet more, or is that because she's making more money?
It proves absolutely nothing. Or is she having an affair? Or is she having an affair with the last guy she actually made a movie with? I mean, there's only a number of reasons.
Exactly. So Sibel, that would upset me too.
Yeah, Sibel, of course. Thank you very much indeed. She's now agreeing with me because you're far too obvious. Let's take a call here. David from Manchester says he wants to agree with you. So it's such a rarity that somebody wants to agree with you. We've got to get him on the phone.
Yeah.
David, very good morning to you.
Good morning, boys.
Yeah.
Hi, David.
What would you like to say?
I would like to say, Porky, you're an absolute legend.
That's very kind of you. Thank you. In what particular...
I can't believe this guy wasn't screened.
No, in what particular area am I legendary on this occasion, David?
Just your broadcasting, and when you used to be on Top Sport all the time, you're an absolute legend.
Well, that's very kind of you. What about my attitude towards being a gentleman towards women?
Well, I work full-time. I have 2 children. My wife doesn't work at all. I work all the hours I can to provide so she doesn't have to work. She cooks my meals, washes my clothes, irons my clothes.
Yeah.
Home is spotless, and that's the way I would rather do it. That she does that. I don't want her to go out and work. I would rather trying to earn as much as I can.
Do you live in a cave? David, do you live in a cave?
Do I live in a cave?
Yeah.
Definitely not. Do you?
No, I don't.
He's trying to make out, Dave, you're a caveman. In fact, what you are is a very decent chap who's decided that you are going to be the breadwinner and leave your wife to look after the domestic issues within a marital relationship, yes?
Yes, and so that as well, because she would... I'm not saying housework's easy, because it's far from it.
No, it's not.
But
what if she wanted to go out to work, David?
Well, we've never really talked about that, to be honest with you, because from day one, I stated that I would do it this way, and she agreed with me, and that's the way we went, and it's worked out great so far.
Well, listen, as long as you're happy, that's the main thing, as long as she's happy as well.
Hang on, how old are your children, David?
One's 8, and I have a little girl at 1.5.
Right, well, you see, now, this is the critical thing. My mum never worked until her youngest child was 14, right? And her oldest child was 16, because we're all, like, 1 year away from each other. And that, to me, is fine. But I do believe that for 1.5-year-olds and even 8-year-old children, so important that one parent's at home on a permanent basis.
I don't think until the age of 14, though. But the other thing that you might want to be concerned about, David, is your daughter. You got 2 daughters or 1?
No, a boy and a girl.
Oh, a boy and a girl. So your daughter, as she grows up, she might see your wife, her mother, as a role model to her, and then she may grow up thinking, well, I'm never going to work either, because that seems to be the way to go.
No, because my wife didn't have the greatest of educations.
There you go.
So my daughter, I will make sure that she has a good education.
Yeah. And then she's free to make her own mind up about how she wants to construct a relationship with her partner in life, yeah?
Exactly, mate, exactly.
Well, there you go.
And if when she reaches that age, David, would you be happy if she was with somebody who didn't want her to do anything at all work-wise, like Mr. Parry, who wants to sort of treat his woman as a sort of second-class...
Well, it depends what kind of bloke he was. If he was a reprobate, I wouldn't want her to stay at home and him sign on the dole, do you know what I mean?
Exactly right. I don't think you'd want anyone that was like Porky to marry your daughter, and that's why he's never been married, you see.
Porky, all the properties he owns...
What? No,
it's all about the money.
That's just
it's all about the money.
That's just a myth, David. Don't worry about that. That's just, that's just my... I mean, if I owned a dog kennel, I'd have more property wealth than Mike Graham. So don't worry about that. That's called property envy.
Yes, mate.
Okay,
yes.
David, thank you for calling.
Thanks very much
well
indeed
done.
for calling.
Yeah.
You see, there is an issue there. If you've got daughters, where if they grow up and they don't see their mother working at all, or even up to the age of, say, 14 or something like that, they think that that's their role in life. They think that they don't need to work. Whereas if their mother does work, then they think, actually, that's what I'm going to do.
Completely untrue. Like my niece...
You don't know anything about it.
My niece Karen is in her late 20s now. Yeah. She never saw her mother work because her mother, who's my sister... actually was a home economist and did a lot of work from home, by definition, and that sort of stuff. Karen's a career girl. She's now a surveyor at a top...
did she study that same thing you did?
A top
urban property, whatever it is.
No. She did chart surveying at a top property company in London, and now her mother's on her back, to say, well, you've got to think about your future and all that, settling down, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and all that kind of stuff, you see. So it's horses for courses.
You say you like the sun, I like the rain. So before we go, do it all.
This is the Two Mikes. I'm Mike Graham. He's Mike Parry.
Sorry, I jumped in a little ahead of the game.
And you keep talking at the wrong time. It's confusing everybody.
I did, but the red light was flashing on and off, a bit like your brain does.
Yeah, well, they do that to tell you that the mics are coming back up in a minute.
Yeah, I know that, yeah. Listen, I wanted to grab Ben before he left the studio. Ben, what is going on? Because I'm looking at some of the headlines in tomorrow's papers, right? And we heard from Ian Danta last night. Why is it that Roy Hodgson, the national England team manager, is playing down Ross Barkley's contribution to that game the other night? I mean, the boy is a budding genius. A budding genius. And yet I see a column here in the Times written by Matt Dickinson, who's their chief soccer writer. Hodgson in no mood yet to bank on Barkley. What's going on?
Well, he's due a run out at some point, but is he in the first 11, the first England 11?
Well,
really?
I don't think he's going to be, is he? By the looks of it.
He should be.
I know, you'll be loyal to him, obviously, because he's an Everton player, but I think he's an impact sub,
Porky
surely.
Parry has now moved. It's a bit like that story I once told about Leon Spinks when he fought Larry Holmes down in New Orleans, and Don King went into the ring with Leon Spinks, who was then the world heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
But as the fight got more and more away from him, he moved into the opposite corner. That's what you've done. You used to be the greatest supporter ever of Wayne Rooney. Now that Wayne Rooney's playing for Man United and Ross Barkley's suddenly come from nowhere at Everton to be this great
What do you mean
new
he's
star.
come from nowhere? I saw him make his debut 2.5 years ago against Queen's Park Rangers for Everton at Goodison. That's
Whatever. Yeah, but the point is now you've changed horses midstream. You're no longer supporting Wayne Rooney.
Let me read this first paragraph of Matt Dickinson. Roy Hodgson first accused the media, that's us fellas, of being, quotes, obsessed with Wayne Rooney. That was when we were all talking about, Wayne Rooney, being your pivotal man, what you'd put him on the left wing for. Now we're obsessed with Ross Barkley, according to Mr. Hodgson. We could argue that the England manager seems obsessed to another extreme, so keen to dampen expectations that he's in danger of sounding as curmudgeonly as Victor Meldrew, and it's very early in the World Cup campaign to become a caricature.
I don't believe it, I guess, would be the natural thing to say to that if we're going down the Victor Meldrew route.
Very
But,
good.
3:37 in the morning, I'm here all week. I'm not convinced that Ross Barkley does make Roy Hodgson's first 11. Sorry
well,
to
then
break it to
you're
Mr.
as
Parry.
backward thinking then as Roy Hodgson.
A flat earther. I've been called that before by the other Mike.
Is that right? Yeah.
He played brilliantly the other night against Ecuador, and I thought actually that would be a great England team to watch once you put the proper defence in. To see guys like Oxlade-Chamberlain and Ross Barkley running at the opposition. That's what you want to see.
All I'd say, Ben, is if people like you were running the world, we'd never have put a man on the moon yet, OK?
There are theories that we haven't. That was all staged.
Oh, rubbish. They say, utter nonsense. Honestly,
This is what you have to put
you're
up
the
with.
sort of guy who would still be, honestly, driving around in a a Ford Consul or something like that if you had your way. If you can't see...
That's how he judges people, by the car they drive.
Yeah, if you
That's
can't...
why he's so envious of me having this big car. That's what it all
I'm
comes
not
down to.
envious. I'm not envious you having that huge car.
I've never seen you
It's a
complain so
revolting
much.
car. I wouldn't
clearly,
allow it into the compound of my flats.
After what happened last week when you parked your very small German car next to my very
Very
large
small.
British car,
Very small.
you were immediately...
Mercedes.
It's a small Mercedes, isn't it?
It's a Mercedes saloon as opposed to a gigantic 4x4 Chelsea tractor that you've got. Anyway, we're getting away from Barkley and Ben's here and his time is valuable. I just can't understand, Ben, that you can't get more excited about Ross Barkley. We haven't seen a player like that run at defences, run at teams, create opportunities for Ricky Lambert since the Gascoigne era.
And the comparison to Gascoigne is one that I think is going to be made throughout the tournament if Barkley does get game time. Look, England have got two massive games. Italy and Uruguay are both must win. I would say a win and a draw minimum if they want to get out of Group D. I will agree with you. I'll meet you halfway. I'd start Ross Barkley in the Costa Rica game.
Too late then?
No, it's not, because it's not England don't necessarily need a result. You'd expect them to beat Costa Rica off those three sides, but whatever England's destiny is going to be in this Group D, we need our strongest 11 against Italy and Uruguay, and I just think that Ross Barkley falls a little bit short. Yes, he's an exciting player, but I'd go with experience.
You've got to be bold in these situations. I'm just absolutely thanking the Lord that you weren't pre-incarnated as Sir Francis Drake, because if you had been, we'd never have discovered tobacco, OK?
Or electricity.
Well, you'd be happy if nobody had ever discovered
Well, probably.
tobacco.
What I'm saying is we'd never have got to South America.
You know, you're always going on about why I shouldn't be smoking and how much I wasted my money on smoking. That picture that I discovered that was going around on social media, because I found it the other week, of a very youthful-looking Mike Porky Parry, who looked exactly the same, by the way, apart from the fact that your beard and your hair were not white, they were kind of red. But you had a cigarette in your hand.
I don't think I did.
Yes, you did.
I didn't see it. Do you smoke, Ben?
No.
Right, just as well. Do you know what a pack of cigarettes costs? I was with a young lady the other night having dinner.
You're just going to have a chat. It's not like in a pub here. You're just going to have a chat with this guy. He's got work to do, so we've got a show to do.
I know. Just one last thing. Sorry, before you go. I was in a restaurant the other night with a young lady.
You fancy helping us with this crossword, Ben?
Hang on. And she wanted a cigarette. She wanted a cigarette. And I said, as a gentleman, of course, always, I said, allow me. So I went and walked about 100 yards down the road to a petrol station to get her a packet of San Moritz consulate cigarette. No, what are they called?
San
Moritz menthol cigarettes, £8.90.
Is that how much it is now?
Now, I thought the guy was joking. I'd preferred a £5 note towards him. I said, no, I only want one packet. And he said, no, what? £8.90. Now, that means that if... old Mike Graham is smoking 30 a day, which he does, he's probably smoking about £12 worth of cigarettes a day. 7 days a week is £84. Multiply that by 4, that's £350 a month. Put 50% tax on top of that, that's about £600 a month. That's depriving his children.
Why are you putting tax on the top?
Well, don't you pay tax?
Yeah, the tax is already in the £850.
No. I'm talking about your earned income. I'm talking about your earned income that you have to pay tax on, and your net income that you take home. £600 a month of it goes to cigarettes, depriving your children the sort of life.
£600 a month.
So depriving your children the sort of lifestyle you should be able to give them. And I'm sorry, but thank you very much for being helpful.
That's quite okay.
Thanks very much. Anything else you want to get into while we're here? We should do a bit of breaking news, actually,
yes.
while we are here, because the Conservatives have held the by-election seat in Newark with a reduced majority. UKIP have come second, though.
They have.
Lib Dems have come fifth.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Did they
It's got to be
beat?
curtains for old Clegg now, isn't it?
Did they beat Bus Pass Elvis? Because that was quite key, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think they got
He only
just
got
over
87
1,000. They
votes.
got 1,004 votes compared to 17,000 by the Conservative
By
candidate.
the way,
So-
what did we think about that stunt of those two men going into that pub?
The pub, yeah. How ridiculous
Nick,
is that?
Nick Clegg and Vince Kyle. I mean, have you ever seen such a ridiculous political charade?
It did look a bit odd, didn't it?
Especially
And,
when-
Worse than odd.
especially when Vince
since they
Cable
actually-
ordered a bitter.
Especially since they actually shut the pub.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so everybody else was looking in through the windows. These guys were pulling pints. Fitzcable looked like he'd rather be sticking pins in his eyeballs and standing there drinking a pint of beer.
He's nearly as old as you as well. He should just retire, shouldn't he?
I'm not going to rise to that.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. More coming up next. This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. He is Mike Parry. And Mike, we never really got to that story we were about to do on these structures that are being put up in your
Unbelievable.
neighbourhood. But before we do that, I've got a couple of tweets and texts I want to read out to you, because you can get in touch with us on social media at IROMG, at Mike Parry 8, at TS Extra Time as well.
Yes.
Brad Cab said this to me. We all want our daughters to marry a slum landlord like Porky.
That's a bit harsh.
Gary says, God, your Scottish caller guest and also your colleague, Mr. Parry, sounds so sexist, it's unbelievable. And Kenny says, get your amorous producer to check out Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's no longer called that. It's now called KFC because of the lack of actual chicken. I don't think that's entirely
I'm
true.
sure that's
but they do,
very
it's true.
untrue.
Lots of people are saying, by the way, that this is not the first drive-in KFC, because apparently there's one in Leeds, according to Mark. Somebody else says there's one in Harrow. And, I'm not absolutely sure where else there are, but maybe it's not the first. But it's going to be a very, very nasty addition, I would say, to your idyllic and exclusive property down there in...
I'd like a bit of KFC. I haven't got a problem with that, but I mean, I don't want it next door to me because of all the litter that will emanate from it.
You know what you're called, don't you?
What?
A NIMBY.
A
You know what
NIMBY?
NIMBY is?
Not in my backyard.
Not in my backyard, yeah.
I don't think so.
Let me read you this, because a couple of people have also got something to say about this power station, the Drax power station. Here's one from someone who doesn't give a name. He says, I go into Drax power station near Selby, and Mr. Parry is correct. They still burn coal, though, but they now burn biomass, wood chippings and peanut shells, etc., sent from the USA by boat. They also burn straw and hay from local farms. Why are they doing this? This is bonkers.
no idea.
You know where they get this biomass from, by the way, because we were talking about this the other night.
Yeah.
Because it's something like 300 to 400,000 tonnes of waste food every single month going to biomass producers, because apparently rather than giving it away, they get paid by the government, these people like Tesco's and Sainsbury's, all the big supermarkets. You know, they waste all this food and sell it. They, instead of giving it to people, for free who need food, or instead of, somehow recycling it, they give it to these biomass producers and make energy out of it, because they get a subsidy from the government, i.e. from the taxpayer.
Sorry, what sort of energy do they make out of food?
Well, they turn it into gas, I think.
What?
They turn it into gas. But it's
Well,
called...
that must cost a lot of money and energy just to do that.
Well, it must.
Ridiculous.
The government pays them to do it.
Well, they just give it to pigs.
Well, maybe there's not enough pigs to eat it all.
No, of course there is. And, there's a load of pigs around. Just give it to pig farmers. Say, come and pick it up yourself and feed it to your pigs.
Yeah, but you ring up the pig farm and say, I've got a couple of 1,000 tonnes of waste food
Well,
for you.
You wouldn't give a couple of 1,000 tonnes of food to one pig farmer, would you? But there's loads of pigs around in this country. You should go to Derbyshire, where they
You
have...
say Derbyshire's full of pigs?
Well, it is, yeah. They've
We'll
got,
get a lot of complaints
they've got
about that.
Swaledale pigs. And in fact, there was a very famous boxer called Jack Bedell. And
I remember Jack Bedell.
He was known as... He came from Swadlincote in Derbyshire, and he was known as the Swaddling-Coat Swineherd because he was a hopeless boxer, right? And he was only a part-time heavyweight boxer.
Remember that guy? There was a guy that fought in America who was from New Jersey.
Yeah.
Who was hopeless, right? And I can't remember what his real name was, but his nickname was the Bayonne Bleeder because every time he got into the ring, he just started bleeding. As soon as somebody hit him, blood would be pouring out of his head.
It's brilliant because I'll tell you about the Swaddling-Coat Swineherd. He was called that because he was a pig farm but part-time boxer.
Right.
But he made the mistake of getting into the ring one night with somebody like Joe Bugner or somebody.
Oh, did he fight Henry Cooper or something?
I think he
like
might
that?
have fought Henry Cooper or something like that. But anyway, whoever he fought, he hit him so hard that he went out and he was comatose on the ring floor for so long. He then inherited the nickname for the rest of his career of Canvasback Jack because he spent so long, sparked out on the floor. And they're all frightened to move him because he looked like he was dead.
Very funny.
He'd been hit so hard. That was a bit harsh, wasn't it?
Very funny. Now, let's talk about this, whatever is also happening in your neck of the woods.
Well,
the council who have already given you a hard time over the flag.
Unbelievable.
Maybe they'll be back, by the way, about the flag.
Yeah, maybe
but what
they
are
will.
they doing now?
Well, you won't believe this, Mike, but I mean, in the road I live in, I suddenly get this planning order pushed through the door, right?
No.
And, it says here from Surrey County Council.
Looks like a bit of technical drawing there.
Well, there's technical drawing there, and it's quite ridiculous. Now, in the road I live in, it's already got 4 banks of traffic calming things.
Oh, speed bumps, yeah.
Speed bumps. They call them traffic
Are
calming.
they
right.
because they're either the bumps or they're those kind of chicanes, aren't they? Where you have to
No, the bumps.
drive
3
around it.
individual bumps stretch across the road,
Right.
so it wrecks your car.
Are they the
whichever way.
kind that go all the way across, or are they the ones that
No,
just humps?
three individual. Three,
Oh, okay, yeah,
three
okay.
individual. Okay.
Can you not drive through the middle of those?
Yeah, you can actually, and in your car, your 4x4, you just wouldn't take any notice
I
of
say
it.
it's fantastic for
Yeah,
those
you
things.
wouldn't
You
take
just go
notice
right
of it,
over.
just go straight over them.
Yeah.
Right now, then, I get this today. You won't believe it. There's little traffic on the road anyway, and the bumps were never necessary in the first place. And they've now decided, and I'll show you this. So I'll just move away from the microphone for a minute.
Well, don't move away from the microphone so that you can't speak into it.
Okay. At both ends of the road,
Yeah.
right, they're going to put a pedestrian crossing in with lights, a zebra, like, what do you call them?
What, Pelican Crossing?
Pelican Crossing. 2 Pelican Crossings on the road where...
Well, maybe there's a lot of people who are worried about crossing the road.
But nobody crosses the road. It's a very quiet road. There's no traffic. I've never seen anybody cross the road. Never.
So it's not going to be a traffic light as such. It's going to be a flashing orange.
It's going to be a
one or
flashing orange light. But you know what happens?
Well, that's not going to stop traffic then, is it?
Of course it is. Because what happens is kids who are walking home from school or something like that press them as a curiosity. A car's coming along for no reason. The lights are flashing. You have to stop. Nobody ever crosses the road. It's a damned infringement on my freedom.
Well, hang on. You say that nobody's ever down there. Nobody's ever
Yeah.
walking there. So
Yeah.
why would suddenly all sorts of people start flocking there just to see a flashing orange light?
I have an absolute...
Don't I need to keep looking at it. I need to read this.
I-
It says here, existing disabled and permit holder bays will be removed
Yeah.
and replaced with double yellow lines. Now, that's
Exactly.
more worrying because what
Yeah.
that means is that there's going to be fewer parking spaces.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it's all right for you because you've got your underground secret car
It's
park.
true.
But, I bet you find that people start parking in there because now there's nowhere else to park. And I bet you this is all about raising money, isn't it?
Well, the raising money bit, anyway, whatever parking bays there were in the street used to cost about £3.50 for a whole day, right? Because
That's
it's,
cheap.
well, I said what it used to cost, right? Because it's not far away from a main station, the Epsom station, right? It's now £8.50 a day. How about that?
Really?
Yeah, and that's gone up in about 2
That's
years,
ridiculous.
and that's a revenue raising up. Now they're putting these blinking. I mean, honestly, councillors are just the worst possible people you can ever come across. They waste ratepayers' money on projects that don't need building. They go around paving high streets. You know they're going to pave Tottenham Court Road now in London.
Yeah, I know.
Make it
It's gonna be-
pedestrianised. I mean, why? Why do they do this? Do you know why? They hate cars. They hate people who've
They
got
do.
a nice car.
And they love cyclists.
So they are. So they see me. Yeah, there's Mr. Parry, right? He's got a nice car. He's got like a nice big Jaguar or something, or a Mercedes or something like that. Well, we don't like him. We're envious of him.
We're going to make it impossible for you to park it anywhere or
Yeah.
drive it anywhere.
Too expensive to bring into
yeah.
town. And, the congestion charge in London...
It's going up again, isn't it?
From £10 to £11.50.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
That's marvellous, isn't it?
And also, you know what I found the other day? I was driving around North London just because...
in your new car?
In my new car.
Just to burn up a load of fuel?
Yeah, just
and
to
impress
show
everybody
off,
about
yeah.
what a big car you've got.
Yeah, just to show off,
Yeah.
exactly. No, actually, I was driving my family around because we need a big car and the dog was in the back and all that. But I drove through, I think it was Islington, and they had all these signs up saying, proud to be London's first borough at 20 miles an hour. They've changed all the speed limits to 20 miles an hour.
I can't believe it. That's a disgrace.
I know that there are many parts of London where you can't get above 20, but they've actually, every single road now in Islington is 20 miles an hour.
That's an absolute... What, 24 hours a day?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I really don't know.
It's a damn disgrace.
I'm sure they'll tell you that it's safer. I'm sure they'll tell you that, there are far fewer accidents. But at the end of the day, people need to get from point A to point B.
Have you ever been involved in an accident in an urban area?
Yes.
What happened?
Well, I was driving from the Hilton in Hyde Park, and I was going back to Canary Wharf, funnily enough. It was a Pride of Britain day, and I was going around Trafalgar Square.
Were you totally sober?
Of course I was sober.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody drives when they've had a drink, I don't drive when I've had a drink.
Yeah.
And I was coming around, and it was before they changed it around, because at the moment, Trafalgar Square is no longer really a proper roundabout.
No, it's not, no.
Because they've got all sorts of different roads coming out. But it was a proper road, and I was going around the left-hand side of it to go down Northumberland Avenue and onto the embankment, right? And a taxi came from the Strand and literally took the front off my car and didn't stop. Just kept going. Yeah.
Did you get the number?
No, because he was doing about 30, and he just
That's
headed
not
off.
very fast.
Well, it was fast enough to take the front off my then
But
company
you shouldn't be able
Ford
to spot
Mondeo.
his number. You're a trained observer. You're supposed to be. That's what journalists are.
Well, no, because
trained observers. Why didn't you observe his number?
Because I was too busy trying to make sure that I could get the car to the side of the road and make sure that it was okay. But when I found out that he'd knocked the front off it, I was quite shocked and taken aback. I couldn't do anything about it. Plus, it was a company car, so I just told the company to fix it. And they did.
So because you didn't own it, you actually were completely disinterested in the
Well, it was easier, wasn't it?
the maintenance and care of this vehicle, which was given to you by your company. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's
you
a
were.
perk
Yeah,
of my job.
Well,
Yeah.
a
So what's the
disgraceful
problem?
attitude to life.
Well,
honestly,
have you never been involved in an accident?
Never.
Never ever. I don't believe you. You must have had an accident in all the years you've driven a car.
No, I don't think I have.
Really?
I don't think I have.
Extraordinary.
Don't think.
Do you know what
I
they're doing now,
have.
by the way? I read this story the other day. Because for people who go abroad and rent cars and things, they've got a driving school where they're teaching you how to drive with a left-hand drive steering wheel. I've never found that to be a problem.
They're teaching people to drive the left-hand drive steering
Yeah.
wheel. Why?
Because when you go abroad, they don't drive on the left; they drive on the right. So the steering wheel's
I
on the opposite
realise
side
that.
of the car.
But if you take your own car abroad, are you supposed to then get another steering wheel, put it on the other side of your car?
Yeah, no, of course not. What you're supposed to do is if you drive, you don't take your car abroad. It's all right if you go to France, but if you're going to Spain, for example, you wouldn't normally take a car.
No, that's true.
You would rent a car.
I've never had a problem driving on the other side of the road ever. Except once in America, when I came out of George Gordon's house in Connecticut. Obviously, we know George very well.
I haven't been to his house up there. Actually.
Big white clapperboard place. You know,
I've never been there.
Oh, staying up there.
I know where it is, but I mean, I've never been up there.
And I came. It's in University Drive, isn't it?
It's somewhere near Goshen or something.
Harwinton,
that's right.
And I came. I was waving to them as I went down the drive and waved like that, and I burned out of the drive, and for a split second, I was back in England.
Yeah.
So I went on completely the wrong side of the road. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
I came out.
I've done that as well.
Turned on the far side of the road, and I'm burning along. And good job I looked up in time. I saw a truck herring towards me.
Yeah.
My initial thinking was, he's on the wrong side of the road. What's he overtaking? And I realised, oh, no, it's me. I'm on the wrong side of the road. So I had to make a very quick adjustment. Yeah. And, of course, the lorry was trying to make an adjustment at the same time.
So that's the difficulty, isn't it?
Yeah,
if he tries to avoid you, you both hit each other.
So that could have been a nasty incident.
Could have been.
But,
well, you know how you make sure that, because the way that I make sure you never do that is the steering wheel's always in the middle line in the middle of the road. So
that's right.
If you're driving an American car, the steering wheel's on the left, you're on the right.
Good thinking.
It's a good way to do it. Because I did it once coming out of Heathrow, came on one of those night flights back from America.
Right.
I've been there for 2 weeks, been driving on the on the right side of the road.
Yeah.
Came out of one of the long-term car parks and just immediately, unfortunately it was quite late at night, it was about midnight, drove into the right-hand lane through the lights the wrong way.
Crikey.
And unfortunately, my partner who was with me said, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'd have just gone all the way up the wrong side of the road and maybe ended up on the motorway going up the wrong way.
Exactly, yeah, down the
tired.
slip road, which is an exit slip road, and you made it an entry slip road. Very dangerous.
Very
You've got to pay
worried.
more attention.
I know.
Had you been drinking on the plane?
No, why all these questions about drinking? I do not drink and drive, okay?
Well, yeah, I hope so.
It's
I
not
hope so.
legal. I just don't do it, and I would never do it. And anyone who does do it, I think it's stupid. In fact, I think they should change the law so that you can't have any kind of drink and drive. 'Cause I think it's a shocking situation.
But the problem is, Mike, that would put out of business thousands of country pubs in this country.
I don't care. They're going to have to come up with something else because they cannot
because
allow
you can
people...
go out for lunch in a country pub.
But you're not going to tell me that people go to country pubs and have one drink and then go back in the car.
Well, they should. They should.
Well, yeah,
That's
but they
what
don't.
the law says, and
they don't.
And they can have 2 little glasses of wine, with a steak or something like that, or a pint of ale or something.
One, can't they?
Sorry,
you're only supposed to have one.
No, you can have 2 small glasses or a pint of beer. or a pint and a half of beer.
But they shouldn't be allowed to, is my point, because it confuses people. And I think what happens is you go to the pub, you end up thinking, well, I've brought the car, so I guess I'll just, I'll try not to drink too much, but it's impossible to have one drink. I can't go anywhere and have one drink.
I'd see a doctor about that problem if I were you.
What, you're telling me that you can?
Well, look, if I've got 5 minutes and I say, look, I've got a train to catch or something like that, and there's somebody there, and I'll say, oh, yeah, I'll nip and have a quick drink with you before I jump on the train or something like that.
That's not the same thing at all.
Of course it is. I know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
You're talking about having a drink.
24-hour-day obsession with filling yourself full of booze.
No, you're talking about having a drink at every possible opportunity. So, there's only 5 minutes till I get the train, I'll just get in the bar and get a quick beer down my throat. You don't want me to tell the people what we did on the way to Crystal Palace?
I can't remember what we did on the way to
I'm
Crystal
not surprised.
Palace.
This is Talk Sport Extra Time. We are the two Mikes. He's Mike Parry. I'm Mike Graham. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to be doing a quiz on the Wild West, because it's another area of expertise for Porky Parry. He knows all about cowboys and Native Americans, as we started calling them last week, because, of course, they're not red, so you can't call them by the other name. Also, we're going to be talking to Mike Okuda, who's a graphic designer on Star Trek, right? Because he's going to be telling us about the reality of teleporting around so that you wouldn't have to fly anywhere anymore. Good morning, I'm Mike Graham, and he is Mike Parry, and you're listening, in fact, to Extra Time. We're listening to it as well, I suppose, because technically that's how it all works. We've got headphones on. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be giving Mr. Parry a quiz on the Wild West. We're going to be talking to a man who works on Star Trek about the possibility of human beings actually teleporting themselves around. Could science fiction become science fact? And we might be having a look at the front pages as well, and lots of other things as well. Keep your tweets and your texts coming in. 08717 223344. You're listening to Extra Time with me, Mike Graham, and him, Mike Parry, on TalkSport. This is Talk Sports Extra Time. We've had a fascinating array of tweets that have come in, haven't we?
We certainly
can
have.
send them into a variety of places. You can send them at TS Extra Time. You can send them at IROMG, and of course at Mike Parry 8.
At Mike Parry 8
Would you like to read a few of them out?
Is the ones I'm going to read out now. And thank you very much indeed, everybody who's been sending them in, for A, staying up late, B, listening to us, and C, for being a TalkSport fan, which of course is a good thing in life. It makes you a better person if you're a TalkSport fan, believe me. Now then, Brendan says, I'm cracking up listening to at Mike Parry 8 at IROMG on TalkSport because of your views on middle-class problems. Have we got views on middle-class problems?
Well, you're very middle class, aren't you? I mean, you're basically a snob.
No, I'm not a snob. I'm not a snob.
You've pulled yourself up from your humble beginnings. You spoke very eloquently about your dad, who was a working class man, and you would be described now as definitely middle class. If you were to do a demographic on you, you're a property owner, you drive an expensive foreign car, and you've got a fair amount of money, and so basically you're middle class.
What
do you think you are then?
I think I'm upper middle class, actually.
You see, you're a snob then?
Well, no, I'm not a snob. I'm not a snob.
Middle class.
I'm not a snob.
Absolute poppycock.
Well, there's
no upper middle class.
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, I'm not saying I'm, like upper class or.
You're saying you're better than everybody else.
Well, I think I have an edge. I think I have an edge inside. Listen, here's one here.
A few more tweets out.
Here's one here. Right, okay. Here we go. This comes from Sean Caden. He says he sued Stallone for stealing his story for Rocky.
Did he?
That was the Bayonne guy that you were talking about.
Oh, the Bayonne Bleeder, yeah.
Right, because the previous one says, and this is again from Sean Caden, he says Chuck Wepner was the Bayonne Bleeder.
That was his name, yeah,
right?
absolutely
He says
right.
Chuck Wepner was the Bayonne Bleeder. Great documentary made by ESPN on him. He was a warrior, and then his next one, but of course, in the way they come in, it comes before the one I've just read, if you see what I mean.
Yes, so you're supposed to read them in that order.
Exactly. He says, by the way, Mike, he sued Stallone for stealing his story for Rocky.
You read that one first?
Yes, I know, but I read it again, so it was in sequence.
It twice.
Yeah. Now, here's one.
That's confusing.
Here's one from Christopher Morris. Hiya, Mike P. That's me. Mike
you don't
Parry.
have to read that bit.
Mike Parry 8. I like to read that.
It's like dealing with a child. Why don't you just read the message?
I like to read that. And he says, I'm a massively debted student, not indebted, debted. So that means he's got big debts. But
doesn't that mean he doesn't actually know English? It should be indebted, surely.
No, indebted means that he's grateful for something. He's trying to make out, if you just listen, let me finish, OK? Give that gobble your shut for a minute. I'm a massively debted student, but I still insist on paying if I take a girl out, as that is how I was raised by my parents.
So his parents are misogynist as well, then?
No, his parents are good, honest people like my parents and taught him how to treat a lady properly. Clearly your parents didn't. Clearly your old fellow was too busy flying around in Lancasters over Canada instead of teaching you how to
I wasn't
behave.
born during the war.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's where he learned
My
his
father
values.
actually was one of the most liberated men I've ever known, and that's why I'm one of the most liberated men that there are sitting around here at Talk Sport.
Right, now this is a
I
great
believe
one.
women are equal. You don't.
This is a great... Yes, I do. I think women are beautiful, wonderful people. Now, this comes from K. That's all it says, K.
K.
Yeah, but not K-A-Y-E. K, like the letter K, like, you know, K for Kellogg's.
Oh, like KFC?
No, just K. Yeah, the K in KFC
Yeah.
was K. And it says, and I find this very warming when people take to me like this, at Mike Parry 8, we would...
Don't read
hang
that
on,
bit out.
Hang on. We would love to have you in Northumberland. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, that is nice.
Oh, nice, that's great.
Does he live somewhere else then?
No, he lives in Northumberland.
How do you know?
And another one, right, this is from Phil, OK? Phil, he's got a thumbnail picture, looking a bit like that guy who played Gandhi.
Ben Kingsley.
Yeah, Ben Kingsley with a beard, bald head and beard. But it says, morning chaps, cracking show on TalkSport. Just one question. How can steam be a hazardous gas when it's hot water vapour? Well, we said that, didn't we?
You said it's not hazardous.
I said it's not hazardous, but I think he's making out...
You're saying hazardous.
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 There's no R in it.
There's no R in it, no. No, but what Phil is obviously doing is posing that question to the authorities who've decided, and I've been proven right, because you've checked it out, that Drax Power Station is fuelled on, did you say acorns from North Carolina?
Well, no, it's they use wood chips, but they also use biogas.
Oh,
we were talking
biogas,
about.
yeah, okay, yeah.
And they also use peanuts, apparently.
Peanuts, amazing. Right, here's one from Cookie Boy. Odd name, but, you know, that's up to him. It says...
Well, it's not his real name, is it? It's just his Twitter handle. You don't really get any of this,
Well,
do
I
you?
don't know. He said he's got a bracket. It says the real Cookster. So maybe his name's Cook.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, just read the tweet out.
Maybe his name's Bill
Why don't you
Cook.
just read the tweet
But
out?
anyway, this is from Cookie Boy. So he says, hi, chaps. My granddad
Why
fought...
you don't read the high chaps bit out?
Well, because I like to, introduce the friendly ambience of these communications. Yes,
Right, okay.
rather than just, the cold, cynical way that you do it. Right, hi, chaps. My granddad fought in both wars. Just imagine that. Was born in 1900, lied about his age in World War One and in the Home Guard in World War Two. He died in 1990, when he must have been 90, obviously. Well, that's a fantastic story, Cookie. Actually, my grandfather led and this is no joke, he led a platoon of donkeys through the battlefield in Price, in Belgium, in the First World War.
Literally donkeys led by lions, rather than the
Yeah,
other way around.
absolutely. But they were. They used donkeys in those days to
But
transport
isn't that funny?
supplies
Because
around.
my grandfather was in the First World War. He also lied about his age. He was
Right.
only 15 when he went to
Right.
to Flanders. And he never talked about it. It was really weird. And he had a shrapnel scar just above his the right side of his mouth.
He might have been gassed.
And no, well, he was in charge of the horses, funnily enough. 'cause
Oh, right.
He came from a sort of farming background.
War horse.
Yeah, it was like that. And he was amazing. He would take me up to a place in Glasgow called the Lynn Park, where there were sort of horses grazing and stuff like that. And he could make horses do a bizarre number of things. He could actually talk to the horses and make them
horse
show their
whisperer?
teeth. He was like a horse whisperer.
Really?
But he never talked about what happened
Wow.
in the trenches, because I think it was just too horrible.
Right. Here's one from Mank Fella. Is funny enough? No, that's his name.
It's not his name.
No, but it says in brackets again. His name's Cookie as well. First one was Cookie Boy. This fella's Mank Fella,
spooky.
but also MCFC Cookie Boy 74. That's a Manchester City fan, obviously.
Obviously.
So he says,
well deduced.
He says, respect to all those who gave their lives for our freedom, D-Day 70. Our schools don't teach enough history of this anymore. Great show, fellas. And it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Our history lessons now for children are pathetic. They're more about, like, social developments in the world. You know what I mean? Like, the reason that we all these days agree to... I don't know. What do we agree to?
Nothing very much.
In your
case, in my case.
No, I'm talking about...
No, but they do. I mean, certainly in primary school, the curriculum is much more based on kind of, understanding...
Social
and
development.
culture and different cultures and that kind of thing. I don't mind that, but it would be quite nice if they taught the proper history as well. It's a bit like when they teach kids how to spell now. They don't teach them actually the correct pronunciation of letters, and they actually make up imaginary words to make them understand...
Like what?
Well, words that don't exist.
Well, like what?
Well, I
What
can't
word?
think of any off the top of my head because they don't
Well,
exist.
your children must have come home and said, "Daddy, what is a
Well, they showed me the stuff.
Canuck or something?"
Yeah, no, they were showing me the stuff that they were being tested on, and they are asked to spell
Yeah.
words that don't exist. I mean, I just don't get it. I absolutely don't get it. And they use phonetics to let them. So when I was saying, to my younger son, A, B, C, he's going at, but, k.
Yeah.
That's how they're taught.
No, but hang on. When you're first taught in primary schools, that's how you pronounce the alphabet. A, B, K.
Yeah, but you don't. That's phonetically pronouncing it. You don't ever use that, do you?
No, of course you don't. But
So
that's
what's the point of it?
that's how you learn how to write it. A is like that. B is like that. K is like
Well,
that.
why can't you just do A, B,
between
C?
two lines. Well, I don't know because that comes later. Now then, there's one here from
You got another
somebody.
tweet?
Yeah,
I've
somebody.
never
called-
known somebody take so much
Hang
time
on,
to read
hang
out
on.
4 tweets.
Hang on. It's more than 4. Right, and this is from a bloke whose name is You're All Bonkers. But I'm sure that's not his proper name, obviously.
No, I'm sure it isn't.
Right, and he says, are we excited about the World Cup? And I don't know what he means by this. He says, I like the way the ball moves above sea level. It swerves more.
Well, I suppose he may be talking about the altitude situation,
Yeah,
but there's not going to
Brazil's-
be high altitude in
Brazil's
Brazil,
not
is
high.
there? In Ecuador, that's
not,
true.
Not unless they start playing on the top of Sugarloaf Mountain or something. which
Although I did hear someone on
don't think there's room.
TalkSport yesterday saying that the South American teams are going to be more used to the way the ball moves
Right.
in that particular continent. So maybe in the hot weather it moves slightly differently.
Right, and the guy called Basha has sent back a tweet that I sent out, and it says, Michael Flatley's doing his final shows in the West End. Is he older than me? That's me, Mike Parry. I might do a bit of river dance on TalkSport tonight with old MG.
I didn't see that one earlier on. Is that what you're going to do then?
Yeah, I will do a bit if you like. I mean, the thing is...
Irish dancing.
Thing is, I used to think Michael Flatley was a genius, and the very first river dance...
Well, he was a genius and still is because he makes an absolute fortune out of one stage show.
Well, he claimed rights to it when they tried to take it off him and everything. He's made like $50 million a year for the last
Right.
10 years or something.
Yeah.
But no, point of the story is, when he first burst onto the scene, and the very first video, that's how far ago it was. It was videos in those days, not DVDs. And I bought this river dance. I couldn't believe the way that guy danced and how beautiful all the women were who danced in the river dance thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it was an astonishing production. And then he fell out with them because he and Jean Butler had a fantastic rivalry, you know. She was the first lead dancer lady, and she was a beautiful, elegant American lady. And Michael Flatley couldn't work out whether he was Irish, English or American, so he was sort of all three, and an accent which sort of made him all
Yeah, it was
three.
kind of transatlantic.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. But, you know, he wanted to be very much the star of the show, and, of course, a lot of people fancy Jean Butler because she's a beautiful-looking, gorgeous lady. So they fell out, and he flounced off, or maybe I'm being very unkind to him. They parted company, put it that way. Sorry, Michael. And then when they continued with Riverdance, as I understand it, he then made a legal claim to the choreography of Riverdance and said it wouldn't have been anything without me.
Right.
I think he won the right to own some of the rights to it, but then he went off and started Lord of the Dance, didn't he? And that's apparently the show he's going to do in the West End for the very last time. Do you want me to do a bit of Riverdance for you?
Yeah, all right.
I need the music. I need the old,
Well, why don't we
Riverdance.
do it during? Why don't we do it during the?
Sorry?
Why don't we do it during the time we're not actually on the air? Because they can't actually see you doing it. I'll video it and send it out.
Okay, that's a good idea.
How about that? All right, we'll go out to some Riverdance, and we'll come back from some Riverdance if we can. Porky's going to try and emulate Lord of the Dance. We were like Lard of the Dance, really, wasn't it? This is TalkSport.
Lord of the Dance.
Apparently, they can't find any Riverdance music.
What do you mean you can't find any Riverdance music? It's some of the most famous music
I
in
know.
the world.
I know. Well, I can't explain to you what's going on behind
I
the
just
glass
don't get
today.
it. I don't get
I mean,
it.
they're
I
so,
don't
they're,
get
they're
it.
so busy just chatting away to each other that, there's just no work being done.
Anyway, I invited you to join me in a Riverdance
well, guess what?
demonstration,
We've
and
actually-
you couldn't.
Well, no, I don't want to do it.
No, you couldn't because of your bulk size, Mike. Let's face it, you cannot lift your body off the floor to land again on your legs because it would crush your ankle knee joints.
So
Here we
ridiculous.
go. Here we go.
But,
Here we go. This is it.
but you did it without accompaniment. So I've just sent it out. What you did.
I did it with this in the background in the other studio. If you don't mind.
Yeah, I know, but I've sent that out already. I don't want to see you doing it again.
Why not?
because you did it ridiculously. It's comedy. It's great comedy material. You dancing.
It is not comedy
Lard of the
material.
dance.
As usual, you see anything that's too hard as being something that is ridiculous if somebody else tries it.
Well,
this is great.
If you check out, I put it on Vine, I put it on Twitter as well. You can see Mike Parry as Lard of the Dance. I think you'd all agree that's a great name for him.
Not going to rise to that. As usual, old MG here, tries to take the mickey and belittles anything he's not up to. I swear to you, folks, he's put a bit of footage out. Is that video or a still one?
It's a video. It's a Vine. It's called a Vine.
Right, it's a Vine, apparently. I thought Vine was something that you grew grapes on to make wine, but
it is. But it's also part of the social media panoply.
Part of the new social media panoply is a bit of Porky doing the old river dance. Have a look at it. I haven't seen it yet, but I can promise you I did it as professional as I possibly could, and I felt good about it.
Very good. Now, here's an interesting text that's come into 81089, and it's from Ian in Birkenhead. He says, does Mike Parry know that his dad went to the same school as the war poet Wilfred Owen? Did you know that?
I didn't know that, no.
His poetry is amazing, isn't it?
Quite stunning.
Yeah.
Quite stunning, I have to say. Some of those First World War poets, without them, we never really got the flavour of what it was all about, because there's nothing like the footage about the First World War that is, of course, about the Second World War, because obviously technology had moved on by 25 years, hasn't it?
Now, I don't know if you were listening the other morning when you were in doing the paper review, but when Sandy Ward was in, we were talking about a story that I think appeared, and it was one of those sort of off-to-the-side stories about the England camp and Roy Hodgson. It was only a couple of paragraphs, but apparently, I didn't know, you will know this from having been down in South Africa, Fabio Capello, during the World Cup campaign last time in South Africa, banned tomato ketchup and brown sauce because he said he didn't want any of the players being unfit and keeping bad habits and food that they shouldn't have and all that. Apparently, Roy's reinstated tomato ketchup and brown sauce because in the hot climes of Brazil, it's actually going to be quite good for them.
Excuse me.
I know you're a big fan. You're right.
Yeah.
See, you shouldn't have done that dance.
No, I have to admit,
if you actually die on
air,
right? If you die on air, that will not be helpful.
No, it won't be helpful at all. What I was going to say was, you realise that from that start with Fabio Capello, and what nationality is Fabio Capello?
He's Italian.
Right, thank you. And who was the next manager to implement that ridiculous rule?
Oh, it was at Sunderland, wasn't it? Paolo Di Canio.
And what happened to him?
I don't know. He's still looking for another job.
Exactly.
But Fabio Capello's getting $7 million a year to take Russia to the World Cup.
I know. I just can't believe it. I just cannot believe it. I mean, he couldn't speak English. What chance has he got to speak in Russian?
I was talking to a Russian guy the other day, and he says he now does his interviews in Russia in English. He doesn't do them in Italian or Russian.
He does his interviews in Russia and England, and he wouldn't speak English here, or couldn't speak English here. It beggars belief, doesn't it? But the ridiculous thing about the old... Paolo Di Canio used the excuse about tomato sauce and ketchup as all that as thinning your blood for some bizarre reason. With tomatoes, tomatoes actually are very good for the male as a barrier against prostate cancer. Did you know that?
I didn't.
No, well, you do now. There's a lot you don't know, Mike. There is a lot you don't know. It surprises me.
There's a lot that you don't know as well. We're about to talk to somebody who knows a lot more than either of us. And it's all a very scientific situation.
Let's do that.
This is a story that appeared a little bit earlier on in the science pages that basically Star Trek style beaming up. Beaming up Scotty and all that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
When you can teleport somebody from one planet back into the ship or into another place.
It'll happen one of these days.
Well, this is what we're going to talk about now because scientists are saying that it could become a reality because this guy who's the leader of a landmark teleportation experiment, where he's been able to transport an atom 3 metres with 100% accuracy, he's saying soon we could be doing it with people.
I don't know how you can do that because you can't see an atom, can you?
Well, of course you can.
No, you can't.
You can't see it with the naked eye.
That's what I'm saying. You can't see an atom, so how do you know he transported 3 metres?
Well, you're saying he's like a flea circus guy, where he just does that with his head. And the flea's
well, maybe. What I'm saying is
you
cannot see an atom, so how do you know you've transported it anyway?
Well, because everything is made up of atoms. We know that. It's been scientifically proven. You are made up of atoms, right? I can't see them beyond their beard.
Yeah, so I snatch out into the air and I say, look, Mike, I've just taken a handful of air and I'm going to move it over here and let it go there.
Well, that's not how he did the experiment.
Well, you can't see the air, and you can't see atoms, because atoms are in the air anyway.
I don't know. Well, let's talk to Mike and Denise Okuda, who are Star Trek fans. Mike actually was a graphic designer who worked on Star Trek, so let's see what he's got to say. Mike and Denise, a very good morning to you.
Hello. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
I wasn't aware there was going to be two of you, so we might have to have some kind of protocol here, otherwise we'll all be talking at the same time.
That's right.
Mike, is it right that you used to work on Star Trek?
Yeah, both of us did. I was the lead graphic designer, which means I designed the control panels, and Denise was the video playback supervisor.
And so did you come up with that great sound when the doors open and close?
No. That was our wonderful sound effects people.
Oh, okay. Must have been a fantastic. And was it the original Star Trek with Captain Kirk and all of that, not the newer ones?
Well, we worked for production on Star Trek: The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, a couple of the movies with the original cast and the Next Generation cast. So we didn't work on the last two, but we worked on a bunch of them.
Wow.
We were little kids when the original series was aired, but we watched it even though we really didn't understand what we were looking at.
And you grew into it. Because, Denise, I was going to ask you then, did you have anything to do with the classic expression, beam me up, Scotty?
Guess what? It was never said in the original series. Beam me up, Scotty was never said in the original series. Scotty beam me up but not beam me up Scotty.
Scotty beam me up, is that right? That's where it was.
Sorry to burst your bubble.
It's like the old Play It Again, Sam, which was never said
it
in
was
Casablanca.
Play It Again, wasn't it?
Exactly.
No, it was Play It, Sam.
Play It, Sam.
You played it for her, you can play it for me.
Yeah, play it, Sam, yeah.
Anyway, as you can tell, Mike and Denise, we're not scientists, obviously, as you find out from Mr. Perry's rather amusing explanation of how he can't see atoms, so you can't actually prove that they can move.
Yeah.
But this experiment that has been done by by Professor Hansen from Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands sounds fascinating, doesn't it?
Well, I believe you're talking about what they call quantum entanglement.
Oh,
which
that's
means
good.
You have a single particle, it could be a proton or whatever it is, and then you have a second particle at some greater distance away from it, and the characteristics of one particle are then transported to the second particle.
Mm.
So it could be a matter of semantics. Is it actually jumping there? But it can be demonstrated that after the teleportation, this atom is exactly the same as the other one.
Mm. I mean, the thing is, Denise, surely we've got to accept, haven't we, that in the due progress of time, scientists will be able to take a human body apart, molecule by molecule, atom by atom, transport it to Australia and put it all back together again, haven't we?
Well,
I don't know if that's going to ever happen. That seems kind of fanciful. However, wouldn't that be wonderful? I hate going on airplanes.
Yeah, but the thing is, Denise, if I said to you in 1900, by the way, England are going to be playing a football match in Brazil in 100 years' time, but all you people in England can sit there, stare at a piece of glass and see all the images of that football match from 4,000 miles away, you would not have believed me, would you?
Absolutely. And one of the magical things about Star Trek is so many things that we've seen, even the original series back in the 1960s, have actually come true. And they wouldn't have said that, these type of things could happen in the 1990s or the 2000s, and yet they're happening now.
Yeah, well, I mean, things like stealth aircraft that sort of we saw in Star Trek,
speed
with
of light,
the shields, and apparently there's scientists in this country working on a tractor beam idea as well, where you could actually draw objects towards an energy source. So, I mean, you're quite right, Mike and Denise, to say that various things have already happened. But so why not actually think that maybe the teleportation could happen as well?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why it's incredibly hard to do, but I think your central point is right. That is, Star Trek is about that if there's something that we can imagine, if we're smart, we work hard enough, maybe we can do it. And it's worth trying.
I mean, the thing is, guys, is that President Reagan actually wanted to build a force shield to stop missiles from another continent landing on America. Now, that's the whole concept of, Star Trek, Space Wars, call it what you want, isn't it?
Space Wars?
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
There were a lot of technical shortcomings with that specific plan, but the point is you do the research, and who knows what else you come up with.
Mm.
They might have thought of an entirely different way to do it. They might have learned things that we couldn't imagine, and that's one of the great things about doing science. You discover things you didn't know.
Okay, just to get a bit non-scientific, kids, I have a friend
Kids?
who... Yes, I like to get down with the kids.
Sorry about this, Mike.
Yeah, I have we both of us here have a friend who lives in a place called Marlborough in Wiltshire, which is a very beautiful county in England, sort of west of the capital, London. And it is also the home for groups of people who go there who are called Trekkies. and they wear baseball caps with, Star Trek emblems on, all that kind of stuff. And the reason they go there...
You know they're supposed to be called Trekkers, actually, technically speaking.
OK, Trekkers or Trekkies. The reason they go there and they literally want to search out, people from space is because it's the world capital of crop circles appearing overnight. Now, to what extent has all the mythology and all the invention of Star Trek passed into some form of reality?
What are you talking about?
Well, what I'm saying is people actually believe it all exists.
I'm sorry, Mike. Mike and Denise, that didn't make any sense to me. Did it make any sense to you?
Well, Star Trek and science fiction certainly have popularized the idea of that they're very likely is extraterrestrial life.
Yeah.
Whether or not crop circles are signs. I don't believe crop circles are signs of extraterrestrial life.
No,
but I very much
think
think I very much believe that it's very likely that there's intelligent life out there.
Yeah,
And
there's not
Star
much
Trek
here. There's not much here at Talk Sport, I'm afraid. Mike and Denise, thank you very much indeed. Mike and Denise Okuda there.
I'm not going to rise to that, by
I'm
the way.
not suggesting you should.
Yeah. Can't you see the connection between crop circles and Star
circles
Trek?
are all a false, just a hoax.
All of them?
Yes, they are.
Well, I think you'll find that actually one or two of them may just be genuine, and a load of con men with a load of planks and rope and string and all that have built upon that to try and create a much bigger mythology than the original. But there is something in the original, there's got to be.
How charmingly naive. This is Talk Sport, more from the two mics next. It can only mean one thing when you hear that music now.
Yep.
You're going to come out with some nonsense about the Native Americans, but we're not going to let you do that this time because you spent plenty of time...
What's nonsensical about studying, the life and the history of one of the most oppressed bodies of people in the history of the world?
There's nothing wrong with studying it, but I'm glad you've studied it because now we're going to give you a test.
Okay.
Not just on the Native American culture, but also on the Wild West in general.
Sure.
You happy with that?
Yeah, very happy with that.
It's going to be 10 questions, right?
10?
Yeah.
It was 5 last week.
I know, because we were short-staffed. This week we're back to full complement. We get 10.
This is Sergio Leone, by the way, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sergio
Leone.
Yeah.
Okay.
The good, the bad and the ugly.
That's right. Lee Van Cleef.
Now, we're ready for the first question. Name any two of the four brothers of lawman and gunfighter Wyatt Earp. Why are you looking at me like that?
We didn't have any.
You didn't have any brothers?
No.
I'm afraid that's wrong.
No, he didn't have any. He didn't have any brothers.
Don't be so stupid.
No, Wyatt Earp did not have any brothers. You're thinking about the James gang.
He had four brothers, Morgan, Virgil, Jim and Baxter.
Rubbish.
None out of one. Number two.
Wyatt Earp was an individual. Yeah, go on.
In 1953, Doris Day played a title role in a film about a tough woman of the early West who reckoned she could outshoot and outdrink any man.
Yeah.
What was her name?
What's her name?
Yeah.
Annie, Get My Gun.
Don't be so stupid.
Calamity Jane.
Well, that's
the only easy one.
Annie, Get My Gun was the name of the London stage play it was turned into.
Why wasn't it Jane?
And later, it became a musical, Oklahoma.
Rubbish.
No, I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Annie was about Annie Oakley. Otherwise, it would have been
I'm
called
telling
Janie,
you.
Get Your Gun.
I'm telling you,
By the way,
honestly.
for anyone who hasn't heard
These are-
Parry doing a quiz before, he never admits to getting anything wrong.
These are trick
Never mind.
questions.
Number three.
Right.
Name any one of the two heroes of the American West who were killed at the Alamo.
Jim Bowie.
Correct.
And David Crockett.
You got two there.
Yeah.
Very well done.
Yeah.
1 out of 3.
Yeah. No, it's 2 out of 3.
No, that's one.
I got two right
Well,
there.
you named both of them. That's one question. Number 4.
Cheating.
What was the profession of gunfighter and gambler Doc Holliday?
He was a dentist.
He was a dentist. 2 out of 4. Wow.
There you go.
Number 5. How old was Billy the Kid when he was killed?
Billy the Kid, when he was killed, he wasn't very old. I'd say he was 23.
Not bad, he was 21.
That was stupid.
Right. That's
No,
close
we're
enough.
not giving you that one. What was the real name of the Sundance Kid? You remember Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid?
yes,
Remember
yes.
which one was which?
Yes.
For a bonus point?
Paul Newman and Robert Redford.
Yeah, but
played.
which one played who?
Oh, Robert Redford was the Sundance Kid. And his real name was...
I'll have to hurry you.
James Boniface.
Rubbish.
Don't be so stupid.
Was it then?
It was Harry Longbow.
He had several aliases, though. That's the problem. That's why he was never caught.
Look, we haven't got time for you to explain why you got it wrong.
He went around robbing banks, telling people he was a different name all the time. And I think you find that Harry Boniface, is one of the names I gave you, is correct.
Number 7. Which British comedian wrote the song Rochdale Cowboy?
That was Mike. And they all,
there.
hang on, and they all laugh when I drive past on my neighbour's Alsatian dog. That's the lyrics to it.
Is it?
Yeah, it was Mike.
Begins with H.
Mike.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Mike Harding.
Harding, got it.
Very good,
Yeah.
well done.
Yeah.
Number 8. What hilarious 1974 spoof on westerns was directed by Mel Brooks?
That was Blazing Saddles.
Correct. Number 9. What were Shawnee, Chisholm and Goodnight Loving?
What?
What were Shawnee, Chisholm and Goodnight Loving?
Is that 3 things?
That's 3 things. 3 things that had those names. What were they?
Well, I mean, are we talking about a brand of whiskey? Are we talking about
Well,
food?
you
What are
don't
we
know,
talking
do you?
about?
Well, you don't know.
Well, it's not that I don't know. It's just it's such a ridiculous question. They're names of people.
They're names of things, not people.
I reckon they were particular brands of wild horses.
Don't be so stupid.
They were cattle trails.
Well, there you go, you see.
What?
To do with
Oh, it's
animals,
wrong.
doesn't it? To do with animals.
Right, final question. So far you've got, let's see, 1, 2, 4 right out of 9. It could be up to 5 right. What was the name of the hideout where Butch Cassidy spent his time? This is easy.
Now, hang on. Are you talking about towards the end of his life in Bolivia? Are you talking about while
Not-
he was
not
going
in
around
Bolivia.
robbing banks in America?
Not in Bolivia.
Right. So that would... It was called The Hole, wasn't it? Called
Nearly
The Hole.
right. Keep going.
The hole... Because it was a hole...
Where
in
was the hole? Where was it?
The hole...
Where was it a hole? Where?
It was like a hole in the ground, like a hole in the wall.
Hole in the
So,
wall.
Hole in the wall.
Correct.
Hole in the wall. But that was the name of the gang, the Hole in the Wall
Yes,
gang.
exactly. That's why it was
Yeah,
an easy question.
Yeah,
So you got 5 out of 10.
There you
You're
go.
getting
See?
better.
See?
You're getting better.
And I think you cheated me out of a couple of the others, to be honest.
No, 5 out of 10, 50%. You wouldn't get an A grade, but you'd get sort of a basic pass.
No, I don't think I
We'll
more
come
than
up,
that.
as we always do at this point, we'll ask you for your suggestions of what we should quiz Mr. Parry on next week. Sometimes he likes to nominate the subject himself, but if you'd like to nominate, you can, of course, send us a text to 81089. You can email via the website talksport.com.
Urban Estate Development.
And, of course, you can find us on social media at Mike Parry 8, at TS Extra Time, and at IROMG. Alan has texted in. He says, I've seen crop circles being made in a documentary years ago. Absolutely perfectly done in a very short time. Common sense, therefore, dictates they are not alien phenomenon at all, but man-made. You got nothing to say?
No, they're man-made now, I agree. But I'm telling you, I believe that there was some input from extraterrestrial beings for the original crop circles. Otherwise, where did the idea come from?
Fine.
Where did the idea come from? The very first crop circles were, in fact, the 4 legs of a spaceship which landed in a field.
No, where they came from was a certain pub in Marlborough where people thought, you know
called
what?
The Barge. I've told you. I keep telling you.
Well, I didn't want to give the name away, but now
Why
you
not?
have.
Why not?
Because people might now flock there looking for this guy.
Yeah.
But it was an idea that was kind of hatched by guys who wanted to make a bit of money and thought we can bring loads of tourists in here. We can do guided trips.
Why would they suddenly come with that mad idea after a few pints? I mean, it's as ridiculous as saying, let's go and paint a mountain and say it was, an alien landing or something like
A lot
that.
of people have done that sort of thing as well.
Well,
Because gullible people like you will believe anything.
No. But, I mean, you have to... I tell you what, you have to give them credit for. If they were all false and all that, then they're incredibly good at making them look magnificent.
They're incredibly intricate. And if you want, to be honest, I still couldn't really explain precisely how they do them.
Well, they stand on a bit of wood with 2 bits of string, which they hold in their hands, and they walk around on the plank. And that's how they flatten the
Yeah, but how do they make
cord.
the pattern that sometimes it's algebraic, sometimes it's geometrically perfect? I mean, you can't do that just by standing on a plank, can you?
You can. How else do you think they do it?
I don't know how they do it. I just know that they do.
Well, the plank is the only thing that wears down the crop. I mean, are you suggesting it's something else? You're suggesting they take a combine harvester out there?
I don't know how they do it.
Dance it around or
I don't
something?
know.
Are you mad?
I don't know. I can't explain it.
Well, I'm trying to explain to you, but it's not getting through.
Well, you're telling me that aliens made them.
I didn't. I said that I think there could have been something in the fact that the idea for enhancing the crop circle industry could have come from an original sighting of something that is still unexplainable, you know, and would have been of interest to UFO spotters.
Really?
That's what I'm saying.
Well, that certainly cleared it up. Thank you. Maybe we'll get an expert on next week on it, crop circle expert. That'll be the way to go.
Yeah.
More coming up from the two mics next. This is Talk Sport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Parry is here. Coming up in the next hour, we'll be looking at South Korea, I should say. You mustn't ever mix up North Korea and South Korea.
No.
Remember they did that at Hampden, didn't they, during the Olympics? They put on the wrong flag.
Yeah.
It's easily done, you see. I just slip of the tongue. You say North Korea instead of South Korea. We're going to find out what's going on with the South Korea team going over to Brazil, because there's less than a week to go now, of course. 64 games, all live right here on Talk Sport. Every goal, every game, every single day. Mike, I don't know if you spotted this story that I was looking at a little bit earlier, but do you remember that sort of television preacher, I guess you would call him, Pat Robertson?
I certainly
who
do.
At one point
must be very old now.
Yeah, he ran. I think, because when we were over there, he ran this thing called
the church.
Yeah, no, he didn't run a thing called the church. He ran this thing called the 707 Club or something like that, or the 777 Club.
It was a mad religious cult, wasn't it?
Well, it wasn't a cult. He was one of these TV ministers.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And he made a fortune. Because
people used to turn up with donations of 500 quid and all this. Yeah.
700 Club, I've just been told. I
Right.
knew there was a 7 in it.
Right.
But he also then had a flirtation with politics, I think. Did he not run for president at some point or other?
He certainly ran for state governor somewhere.
Yeah.
Where would that be? Like in the Midwest somewhere?
He was, I think he was from Tennessee or somewhere like that.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Made a presidential bid in 1988. Well, they're paying attention in there now. Amazing. It's
Yeah.
good when they do that. Anyway, apparently now he's come out and basically, which is pretty weird considering he made a fortune off people's donations through his television
That's
show.
right, yeah.
He's come out and said that online shopping is basically the work of the devil.
Oh, it's ungodly. What he's saying, I mean, it's amazing. I did see this, actually, and I tell you why, because I think online shopping is ludicrous, because you never get anything
Yeah, but
to
you don't
fit
think it's
you.
the work of the devil.
No, it's not the devil, but he says that when that many people are brought together in a mass participation of an action,
right.
it's the work of the devil.
But what does he call all
And
the
it's
people that
ungodly.
used to watch his show?
Well, yeah, but presumably because he thinks he's preaching the word of the Lord,
Oh,
that's acceptable. But this is not. This is taking money off people and that sort of stuff. So he
Right.
says it's ungodly. But
Well, that's what I mean. There's a bit of irony here, because that's what he does. I mean, he basically asks, tells people that he's going to save them, and then send us $10 in an envelope.
yeah, but as I said, because he says it's the work of the Lord, and he's got to build churches all over the place.
Yeah.
That's what he wants the money for, and preachers and employ them and all that kind of stuff. He says that's it. But he says what this is doing is people getting ripped off. But actually, funny enough, although I think he's an extremely eccentric man and actually lost touch with reality in many aspects of what he says, I do agree with the online shopping thing. I think it's nonsense. I mean, I'm told that 50% of stuff that's ordered by online shopping is sent back because it's not what people expected they were going to get.
Oh, really?
It's either clothes that don't fit because they're the wrong size,
Yeah.
or it's some device that doesn't fit in their kitchen or something like that. You know what I mean? So they have to send it back. But
presumably something. I mean, like if you buy it from some of these shopping
Yeah.
channels as well, rather than just online, presumably when you get stuff, it's maybe not quite as good as you thought it was going to be.
Well, it's not as good, or it doesn't do the job that it was. One of them is the steam things. You know the steam gun you clean your kitchen with?
No.
Well, like...
Steam gun?
Yeah, if you're trying to clean your cooker.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't matter how good your cleaning lady is, and my housekeeper's very good and all that, right? No, what are you laughing at?
It doesn't matter how good your cleaning lady is.
yeah,
I mean, there are
yeah.
people listening to this who clean their own kitchens.
Well, okay, maybe there are, but I have to
You
be
don't
very
even
careful.
cook, so why do you have to clean your cooker?
Look at my hands. I have to be very careful because I get eczema on my fingers here.
Yeah.
And that's due to
Due to not doing any work.
No, it's due to the fact that I have to take so many tablets every day to keep the old ticker going.
right.
It dries up your skin.
So you couldn't
And
wear
so-
rubber gloves then?
Well, that would make it worse. That
Yeah.
would exacerbate it. So I have to get somebody
So
to
is
do
that
it
your
for me.
excuse for not doing any housework?
Not really. I prefer somebody else to do it who's better at it than me. But
So tell us about this steam thing. I'm intrigued.
well, this is a gun about the size of a water pistol.
Yeah.
But you fill it full of water, and then it becomes like like you can buy an iron which shoots steam out the
Hmm. Yeah.
front and all that. Which is basically
Steam
that.
iron.
Yeah, steam iron. That's right. Yeah. But basically, what you do is you fire this gun at your cooker. And and it gets every last drop of grease because it boils the grease. You see what I mean?
Well, what
And
does it do
melts
with it? Well, it doesn't just melts it. You still have to clean it, though, don't you?
Yeah, well, then you have to follow it up with a cloth, I suppose, to wipe it up
Oh,
or something
perhaps you
like
could
that.
get a gun with some detergent in it.
Well, you
have
could.
two
I'm
guns.
sure you can. But anyway, look, this is relevant. The point is,
How do they? No, I'm more interested in the gun. How do they power this steam gun?
I suppose you plug it into something. I don't
Really?
know.
A gun with a plug.
Well, yeah, a bit like a steam iron.
Have you
I
got one
suppose.
of these things?
No, I haven't got one of these
Well,
things.
where have you seen it?
Well, because sometimes, when I get home, sometimes and I listen to the rest of your show, I switch on the telly, and it's been on a channel which is now a shopping
watch the
channel
shopping
overnight.
channel, don't you?
Yeah, I do watch the shopping channel. Yeah, I think they're fascinating to see the sort of rubbish that they peddle on these shopping channels and people actually buy.
So what have you bought from the shopping
Well,
channel?
this is the point.
Because I bet you have.
Well, I haven't consciously.
Well, unconsciously.
Well, a little bit. I mean, what happened was.
After a couple of bottles of wine.
Well, it is going down that route. You see, what happened was when I went back to America.
Actually, funny enough, I went out for a drink yesterday afternoon. Not for very many drinks. I nearly bought another car on the way home because I saw this Mercedes, quite an old Mercedes.
Yeah.
It's for sale for £1,000. Yeah. And I thought that'd be perfect, wouldn't it, just to have as a sort of little runaround. If you don't want to take the big car somewhere else.
Where are we going to put this second car?
Well, I've got a place to park it in London. Because, I get so fed up with the train, I'm actually seriously thinking maybe I'll just drive up and down to Sussex.
I read a report today saying that over 65% of people who now live in a London postal address don't have a car.
Yeah, well, I haven't.
You don't need one in
Well,
London.
I don't really need one.
You don't need. You've got tube, you've got buses, you can walk around
That's all
places.
very well until the tubes go on strike.
Yeah.
It's all very well until the trains don't run.
Yeah.
All very well
but
until...
soon it won't be with you while having a car. When they put the congestion charge up to £11.50. And by the way,
I
the
don't
other
need
thing,
I don't pay the congestion charge.
The other, well, you do if you're driving around in London.
Yeah, but I won't be. I come to work at night, there's no congestion charge. I go home in the morning, there's no congestion charge.
Yeah, but if you go out of London to go to your other home in Ashford, in Kent, or
I
wherever
go
it is,
out, I don't touch the congestion area.
well, I'm not sure about that. But
No,
anyway,
I am sure about that.
Anyway, the other point is, it's also dangerous driving a car around in London because there's so many hidden cameras. You can get done for anything. You can get done for driving in a bus lane.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night.
Well, don't drive in a bus lane.
In the middle of the night when you think it's safe.
Well, don't drive in a bus lane.
You can
Simple.
get done for driving in a bus lane because you come up to a junction, there's a car in front of you wanting to turn right, so you think, well, there's no traffic on the road.
Bus lanes don't go across junctions.
They certainly do, because... Look, it's not a cross junction, you fool. It's a road on the right, which is somebody's turning into.
I love it when you get frustrated with me.
Somebody turning into on the right. So you stop them. So you indicate left, you go into the bus lane to move around the car, and then 3 days later you get a notice saying you've been fined 130 quid for violating a bus lane.
Only if it's a bus lane that's always in constant use.
Yeah, that's true, but
well,
I mean...
if you know that's what it is, then
you
don't go in it.
know, do you?
Well, there's always a sign.
Unless you've got some sort of computer in your head saying this is a 24-hour bus. Anyway, let me get back to what we're talking about here.
Yeah, the
online
steam,
shopping.
The steam cleaner.
Never mind the steam cleaner. So when I went back to America, I went to Washington to do the elections with Bill Clinton, who I became a good friend of, by the way. He's a good friend of mine, Bill Clinton. Yes.
I've got a picture of myself with Bill Clinton.
I think I have as well. Anyway, point of my
bring
story.
it in, along with that picture of Joan Collins and you.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I still haven't seen that.
Okay. Now, excuse me, coughing there. Now, point of my story is this. I get back to Washington. I'm not entirely happy about being in Washington. I felt that, I could have still been progressing things on the Daily Express in London, but somebody else
they basically booted you out.
Yeah, that's right, actually.
They said the best thing we could do with this bloke is send him as far away as possible.
That's about right, actually.
And let him sort of stew in his own juice.
No, that's about right. That's about right. Now, this fantastic apartment in Washington,
that's the amazing thing, isn't it, about jobs like that, where, I mean, most people would dream of getting a job like that.
That's
Washington
right,
correspondent. You were upset because actually you knew you'd been hoisted out.
Oh, I was sent to live in this luxury pad in Washington, D.C., on the same road as the President of the United States of America, Pennsylvania Avenue. He lived at 1600, I lived at 617. I've still got the documents for the apartment at home. And I was very fed up that most of the time I was visiting the British ambassador and having massive great drinking sessions with him in the ambassador's residence. Well, not the ambassador himself, but his staff, you see what I mean? I'm not suggesting the ambassador was a drunk. Of course he wasn't.
No.
Or I was literally being wined and dined by, congressmen who thought I worked for a very
Irish
important...
embassy was where you'd find the parcels,
Irish embassy was great, but all these congressmen and senators who thought, as I was the American political editor of the London Daily Express, I was a hugely influential person, and in fact, I didn't know anything about anything really. But
also, ridiculously, the people who were running the paper in London would be more than happy to pay you any kind of amount of money and give you any sort of expenses, because they didn't want to sort of have to deal with the fact that they really treated you rather badly.
That's right, absolutely right.
Incredible situation.
Yeah, they thought I'd got too aggressive in my
well, you were going a bit mad
in my attitude as the
as the news editor
of the paper.
You were going a bit mad.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't going mad at all. I thought I was actually, being firm and decisive in making decisions.
They told me that they were worried for your health because you were becoming an obsessive.
Absolutely.
You were getting
nonsense.
into work at like 6 in the morning, staying there till 8 at night.
But I always did that. And then all of a sudden I didn't like it. And anyway, point of my story is, so I'm trying to set the scene for our listeners. Kind of unhappy mood, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
A job that entailed vast amounts of drinking at cocktail bars and embassies and all this kind of stuff. Returning home at sometimes 2 in the morning, switching on the telly to the novelty of TV shopping.
Which at that time there wasn't in the UK.
No, it wasn't anything like that in England at all.
Yeah.
When I first went to America, there wasn't even MTV in England, same with you.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this is in the sort of, excuse me, mid to, early to mid-90s.
Right.
And this is fantastic, wow, TV shopping. Of course, I had an endless supply of money and loads of credit cards in my pocket. So what I used to do was...
Some of which were presumably charging straight back to London.
Absolutely. And so I was pulling out the credit cards and I was getting going. Now, I didn't know about
actually buying stuff.
I was buying stuff, yeah, but I didn't know about it until about sort of a week later. The concierge downstairs, Mr. Perry, you got a parcel for you. I said, a parcel? I said, who sent me a parcel? He says, don't know, but here's a parcel for you. So thanks very much. I took it upstairs, opened it, and I was amazed to find that I had 2 pairs of garden shears. Now, I lived in a 13th floor apartment in Washington D.C.
Right.
So I had no idea where these had come from.
Why would you ever buy anything at all? Why would you buy those?
Well, a week later, a lawnmower arrived, right, in a big, box about 4 foot high, and I said, this guy said, you keep sending me all this stuff. And anyway, he said, well, don't you look at labels? I said, that's a good idea. I looked at the label. Anyway, it was the TV shopping channel.
Right.
And what had happened was I'd been a little bit comatose in drink. Yeah. And I'd been...
Yeah, but why buy a lawnmower?
I don't know. I've no idea.
You didn't have a garden?
No, I didn't have a garden, no.
Did you think you had some secret longing to have a garden?
I don't know. Or maybe that was what was on at the time. Anyway, I was buying things like overcoats, which, 5 sizes too big, I remember. And that's why I kept saying, you've got to send things back, because I didn't bother sending it back.
So what happened to all this stuff?
Well, I left it when I left Washington, and the cost of them appeared on bills which are going straight to London,
right.
And they started sending me messages asking
why have you bought 5 overcoats and some garden shears?
Exactly, yeah, and all this kind of stuff. But the problem was I was in a sort of, I suppose the word is intoxicated state when I was ordering all these things. And
dangerous. Well, they do say you should never go shopping when you're when you've had a drink.
Absolutely right. But I mean, all sorts of things were arriving. All sorts of very impractical things. Oh, I know another one. A table and 4 chairs for a patio garden.
So there's obviously a theme here about stuff going on in the garden.
Well, it must have been.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, maybe I thought that I could have it delivered back to England or something, and was hoping I could use it there.
Yeah, you're probably buying it for your sister or something.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, it's in the end.
Did you manage to sort of stop the habit? Because it sounds like it was a bit of a sort of compulsion.
I did. I put a sort of, like a barrier on myself to do it by hiding my own credit cards, because I'd become irresponsible with them. Because I never paid for anything when I went out.
Yeah.
People were always buying me dinner and all that kind of stuff.
You should have just got rid of the television.
Well, you can't do that in America, can you? You've got to need it. If you're working as a journalist, even if you do spend most of your time getting bladdered.
Absolutely unbelievable. Well, Mr. Parry, it's been a delight this evening, especially the story that you told about your father and the D-Day landings.
Yeah.
A lot of people very, very appreciative of that, and of course we will be commemorating them throughout the course of the day. You'll be hearing updates on that from Sandy all the way through.
And has this Michael Flatley stuff gone out, has it?
Yeah, it has. The video's out there. You just have to retweet it.
Really?
You can't even find it, can
No,
you?
I can't find it. No, I don't know where it is. I mean, you say you put it out, and I'm not sure. Now people are going to start
It's just
mocking me.
stumbling around. Well, because you can't. I mean, you literally don't know your own name. You couldn't walk home if you were pointed in the right direction. Anyway, it's over now.
I'm Mickey Quinn, and that was the 2 Mics on TalkSport.